Okay, this is an amazing thing. Joe Iconis is on the podcast today. What the heck? I've been listening to Joe Iconis' music since I was a teenager, and I got the chance to tell him that, which was so cool. And it's crazy to think that he's listened to episodes of our show. It's like unbelievable and amazing. And he was just such a, he just walked out, and me and Christian just looked at each other and were like, he is the dopest guy. He's just so cool and cares so passionately about musical theater. And we relate on many different levels, and that being the biggest one is like me, Christian, and him is like we all love musical theater and want the best out of it, and I think that Joe is really trying to do it, and some of his works. Biggest thing I didn't get to chat with him about was that he's a Tony nominee. We talk about Be More Chill and Be More Chill and Be More Chill, which is obviously his most notable being famous work. But he got a Tony nom for Best Score for Be More Chill, which is pretty amazing. So we didn't get the chance to chat to him. We chatted about Be More Chill. Don't you worry, you Be More Chill fans. We chatted about Be More Chill. But we didn't get the chance to chat about the fact that he got this Tony nom. And he's also just been writing for years and years and years. And for a long time, people looked at him like this up-and-coming writer. And now he just has this breadth of work that he's done that's so funky and cool and weird and honest. And so I love chatting with him about his work and also about his passion for musical theater. Some of his other shows, just to riffing off, he wrote Broadway Bounty Hunter with Andy Golden. He recently wrote the Untitled, Unauthorized Hunter S. Thompson musical, which premiered at Signature Theater last year. And we get to talking to him about all those. And also, I want to talk about the fact that Joe just came out with an album, it's been almost 4 years. He wrote it in 2022, and it's an album called Album, and it's essentially like this song cycle type thing where it's story-oriented songs with songs sung by Tveit and Lin Manuel Miranda, that is, Danny Burstein, Krysta Rodriguez, and many, many more. So it's and it's a great album. It's great. I told him I think it's some of his best work. I really, really loved that album, and he's doing concerts with Iconis and family all the time. So, that's really cool, and he's very much around and celebrating musical theater, and we appreciate him coming on the show because it was just a joy to get to chat with him about all things modern day musical theater, but also talking about why we love musical theater and the themes that resonate from musical theater that we're still employing today and where we see the industry going. I think there's a lot of interesting things to chat about here, and I think that I love talking about musical theater with someone who loves talking about musical theater. His passion is overwhelming and joyous, and he was a blast to chat with. We talked about all things Be More Chill and Smash because he sang that song, Broadway, Here I Come. Probably not the right key there. So you're going to love this episode because I love this episode. Let's discuss a little bit about Joe Iconis' I Want to Be Like You. 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 Alrighty, Let's do it. Welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes. Welcome, Joe Iconis.
Hey.
Thank you so much for doing this. It really is a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Like I mentioned to you, like when I was in high school, when we were in high school, it was like Be More Chill was the biggest thing. Michael in the Bathroom was the biggest thing. Yeah. Everyone was listening to it all the time. So
good.
I've known about you for a long time. And funny enough, right around that time, I started watching Smash, like on NBC.com, binging before Peacock was even a thing.
I was coming at you from all sides.
Yeah, that's right. And now we're here doing this thing. So it's pretty cool. And also I should shout her out because our little cousin, she had she's in college now, and she had this musical theater phase for a minute, and she was a huge Joe Iconis fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you might have been like the first composer that like she knew the name of. You know what I mean? Like,
nice.
Yeah, so we're shouting out Nelly because Nelly loves Joe Iconis.
Thank you. Thanks for the streams.
Yeah. So we start with the podcast with the same question every time, and it is, who was your I Want to Be Like You when you were a kid?
Yeah. So like age-wise, do you care about the age?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna go the first person that I ever actively wanted to be like was Michael Jackson.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was my first. So I was probably like 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I was born 81, and so Thriller came out in like 82, 83,
Yeah.
I think. And so I was just obsessed with him. I was
Right.
obsessed with the music video of Thriller.
Sure.
I was obsessed with like his performances on, you know, like award shows. And
Right.
yeah. And I just actively wanted to be him.
Yeah. Yeah.
We dress in costume, like the whole thing.
He was super theatrical. Like when you think about it, Michael Jackson was super theatrical. Yeah. We were huge Michael Jackson fans, so much so that my parents got it was their 10-year anniversary in Dominican Republic. And so they invited everyone. And in Dominican Republic, they do these things called kids shows. So they do a show at the resort. But before that, they do like a kids like 1 hour show where you ring around the rosy with the equivalent in Dominican Republic. Okay. But on the Michael Jackson night, they asked all the kids to come up and do their best Michael Jackson impersonation.
Oh, sweet.
Me and Christian and our cousin Juju did like a full-blown performance to beat it. So much that around the resort for the remainder of the week, people were calling him in particular Michael. They were like, "Hey, Michael, Michael!" He became popular around the resort. Yeah, so Michael Jackson,
famous.
he resonates. Yeah, I'm surprised. I feel like if Michael Jackson was around now, he'd probably be on Broadway. Like he probably would have done a Broadway show by now.
I mean, he is on Broadway.
You're right. He is on Broadway. That's actually a good point. That's right. That's a good
He's
point.
making money from Broadway.
You're right.
Now.
He's been on Broadway. He's one of the most successful.
Yeah, he's no longer with us.
Yeah,
but, you know,
and yet
the estate prevails.
Yeah, you won a Tony for Best Leading Actor on Broadway.
Oh man, I know. It's really wild.
So you're from Garden City, New York.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Long Island.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I get confused because we're from the city, so I'm like anything that's not in the city, I get thrown off.
Yeah, understandable. So I'm very much like super suburbs, Nassau County.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I have like a big Italian family, and so my mom's side of the family was from Brooklyn, my dad's side was from Queens. Nice. They all moved to Long Island in the 60s, you know, and it was sort of like we want a better life for our kids. So we're gonna move to the suburbs. And,
right.
So that's where I hailed from, but my grandparents were just always in the city, you know, so I grew up coming to New York all the time. So I always just felt like the city was home.
Are you still in Long Island?
No, I live in the city.
Oh, okay, yeah. So what was your first Broadway show? Do you remember?
Yeah, of course, yeah. My first Broadway show was, I mean, technically off Broadway, but it was Little Shop of Horrors at the Orpheum Theater.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I saw it September 27th, 1987. It was a present for my 6th birthday.
Oh, awesome.
And it fully changed my life.
Really?
It changed the course of my life. Like I feel very strongly that I would not be sitting here right now had I not seen a Sunday matinee performance of Little Shop of Horrors at the Orpheum.
Had the movie come out already?
Yeah. What's so weird is that the movie came out while the show was still running, which used to like so not be a thing. Like they used to never make the movie until the show closed.
Right.
And then, but they had made the movie, and so I had seen the movie, right, which was like super not cool for a 5-year-old, but like it was, you know, it's like what it was.
Yeah.
My parents were like slightly not aware of like what I was being shown by my family, and so I like loved the movie, and then I saw a commercial for the show one day, and I was just like, oh, I want to see that, you know, I want to see it live, and so the original production closed in November of that year, so it was like right at the end of their run.
Gotcha.
But I went with my dad. He took me into the city, and I saw it, and I was just like just like fully blown away. You know, I'm like, I love the Little Shop. Like I love the story, I love the music, but it was more the experience of being in this room where everyone was like watching the same story, and everyone was like moving in time with one another, and it was that the experience itself was just so absolutely it changed my DNA. You know, it's just like it just did something to me. And you know, in the original production of Little Shop of Horrors, at the very, very end of Don't Feed the Plants, vines came down from the ceiling. And I always say that like the vines like zapped a love of musical theater into me. You know, it was just it was this immediate thing,
magic. Yeah, that's so cool. After that, did you start doing theater?
Not quite, you know. So I was like I said, I was 6 years old, recently 6.
Yeah.
And so it was more just like becoming obsessed with watching theater.
Learning about it, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like for every like birthday or holiday, and my gift would always be going to see a show in the city.
Cool.
You know, so I just became this little kid who was like obsessed with theater.
Right.
And I started doing theater. You know, I would do like summer camp kind of stuff, but I come from a family that is like so supportive of me, but they're not in the arts at all, right? They're not in entertainment, and so even if I was a kid who was like, I want to be in shows, they would have had no idea like where to even start. You know? But the truth is that I was pretty not around my family, but around like other people. I was kind of shy as a kid, and there's no way that I would have had the balls to like get up on a stage and do it, you know? So like, even when I did like camp shows and stuff, I was I was terrified of being on the stage, and I was awful. Like, and I knew I was awful.
Oh, funny.
I knew that like I'm not like a successful performer right now.
Sure.
But I just loved being around the theater so much that I continued to do it. You know?
Yeah. Do you remember? Well, I think you do. But the first thing you ever wrote?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's this song called "Mothers Are Special."
Yeah.
And then in parentheses, "When You're Sad."
Yeah.
And I wrote it for a summer camp show when I was like 6 or 7, or 7 or 8, I forget. It was around there, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote it, and the song is "Mothers are special, mothers are special when you're sad. Mothers are special, mothers are special when you're sad. Mothers are special, mothers are special when you're sad. Mothers are special, mothers are special when you're sad." That's it. Bye, everybody. That was the whole song.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And
Really
now you finish the song,
Yeah.
and it is recorded by Lin Manuel Miranda
Yeah.
on your album. Like,
Yeah.
so cool. That was one of my favorite songs on that
You
album.
cut the track. Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
it's so cool.
Yeah, I really was delighted by the idea of making that man sing that particular song. It seems like almost insulting
finishing it.
to make him do it. Yeah. So that was my first.
Did you have were you like playing piano at the time? What was your piano history?
Yeah, so my piano history kind of it's sort of it was like like an adjacent timeline to my like becoming a theater kid and becoming this kid obsessed with theater. So my big Italian family, my grandparents, my mom's parents had a piano that they bought in the 60s,
Right.
and they had it in their house in Valley Stream, Long Island. And when my mom got married, had kids, they gave it to my mom. And it was sort of like, you should have this piano because that's what people have in the suburbs. They have a piano in their living room, and nobody played it. My mom like was forced to take lessons when she was a kid, and hated it. Like the joke was like she took lessons for 5 years and she can't even play chopsticks. It was like one of those,
Right.
And so it was basically just this thing that was like in my house. And they put like pictures on it, and people would put glasses. I don't like it was like a piece of furniture, right? And my grandparents again said like, oh, the boy should play piano. You should put him in piano lessons. And so when I was like maybe 9 or 10, I started taking neighborhood piano lessons. My teacher's name was Mrs. Jablonski.
Oh, cool.
And it was like really classic like Hannon and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't like it. I did not excel at piano, and I was in it for probably a year or so where I was just kind of like screwing around and hated practicing, and it just wasn't happening. But I started then getting into the theater more and more, right? And so what started happening was like I would go to see a show, and then I would come home and I would pick out the tunes that I heard in the show on the piano. So I started like either developing or accessing this really great ear that I had as a kid. The more I started doing that, I started like making up my own tunes. I started getting interested in playing songs that I knew. And so then it was like I was going into piano lessons with Mrs. Jablonski and being like, hey, can I please work on the score to Phantom of the Opera? Like, can I please work on, like, and then like getting excited about playing music that I was excited by. That was the thing that sort of got me going as a piano player. And then, pretty early on, I just developed into this amazing little piano player. And the thing was like, I could read music, and I was technically, fairly proficient. But my real skill was I would like look at music and I could improvise accompaniment to it. Like I could look at a cluster of notes and I would know what the chord was, and I would just sort of make up my own piano parts without really knowing what I was doing.
Sure.
It was just how I sort of saw music and heard music, and it was really just like the kernels of me learning how to write. It just kind of
Were you like adept at reading too?
Sheet
music? Were you good at reading sheet music and stuff too?
I was. Yeah. My problem was that I would rather make up stuff, So it was I could do it. I didn't like to do it. And at a certain point, probably when I was like 13, I think, Mrs. Jablonski was like, I don't know what to do with him anymore. He sort of has surpassed what I can like teach him. And so, she said to my parents, you guys should probably like put him in a piano program or school or something. Like, and it was, this was before the internet, which makes it sound so ancient, but it was like, the 90s, whatever.
Sure.
But like, we didn't know, my family didn't know like what you did with a kid who had this sort of like artistic ability. And so I ended up going to some like Long Island music schools, which were sort of starting at the time. And just, it was like a once a week thing. It wasn't like I was like at a like real school, but they were all classically geared, right? So because that was sort of like, oh, this is what you do. There was no sense of like, oh, there's another way to use your art. There's another way to use your music. It's like you play classical piano. Like that's the only avenue for a kid who's like a good piano player. And so I was learning, classical stuff, and I was good at it, but I just hated it. I hated playing exactly what was on the page. Right. When I went, the instruction that I was receiving was so much about honoring the music exactly. And it was like, honoring every nuance of what is on the page, and every tempo marking and every dynamic marking. Right. And I could do it. I was just so disinterested in it. And I so craved having some kind of guidance for the sort of stuff that I wanted to do, which was like, I want to, make arrangements of all of the songs from the Sunset Boulevard cast recording. And like, I want to like write my own stuff and be told how to do that. And all of that stuff was so looked at like, that's not real music. Right. It's like classical is real music. That stuff isn't real, Right.
There still is a little bit of that, I feel like, in just like in, social whatever. Like there's something about it still.
Yeah, no, it very much feels like something that I can recognize in my adult life, in my professional life, And it's, but the first time I encountered it was like as a 12-year-old, who didn't understand why I had to honor the dynamic markings.
Did you start writing as a teenager? Did you start writing musicals? Like, did you start writing things for musicals or things like that?
I did,
story oriented.
I did. So it was like I would write songs from musicals, but I never wrote words, right? So it would always be, I approached everything from a music place. When I was little, I always thought I would be just a straight up composer. I never imagined being a writer of lyrics, right?
Right.
And so I would write these songs that all had like dramatic context, either for a story that I made up or for like a musical version of a movie that I loved, right? Gotcha. And so there's like many musicals that have now been on Broadway or are on Broadway that I wrote a musical version of that, and I was like
funny,
like 14 years old.
No way.
Like Back to the Future and Death Becomes Her.
Funny.
And so I would write these songs for imagined moments in the musicals, and and for me, really, like as soon as I was old enough to realize, there were people who wrote shows, I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm gonna do. Like I was very like one track mind about that. It's like I want to write musicals. I want to be the person that is making these shows that I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So when did you decide that this was something that you were going to go to like college for and pursue on that level?
I mean, I had a health teacher in 6th grade. So I was, 11 or 12. His name was Ms. Backer. And she had everyone in the class write down answers to like a questionnaire that she gave us that was like, who's your favorite band, and who are your best friends, and then she mailed back the questionnaires to everyone when we graduated from high school, which is so insane to me. It's amazing that she did that, like a hard copy. It's incredible. Wild. And one of the questions was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote Broadway composer. So it's like I wanted to do it from the time I was at least 11 or 12.
Wow.
Like, documented.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's just the only thing I ever really wanted to do. So for me, it wasn't like, what am I going to go to college for? It was sort of like, I'm going to go to college for, musical theater writing. What is that? How do you do that?
Yeah.
And so, just thinking back on it, like I always talked about that in high school when we have like the career day or like the the meeting with your guidance counselor, and everyone who I spoke to was just sort of like, I don't think that's a thing. Nobody knew. Like no one knew what the hell you did for that.
Right. So you wound up going to NYU.
I went to NYU. Yeah.
Did you? Was it something that, I always talk about the college experience, the college audition experience for you. It's a little bit different, but like, how many schools were you looking at? What was your like essence when it came to that?
I wanted to stay in New York.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, because I just loved the city, and it
Yeah.
felt like, well, I want to work in theater, and so I want to be around, theater in New York
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
And the other reason was that I was like terrified to go anywhere that wasn't New York because my family's here.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm someone who was like so attached to my family, and still am. But I was a socially awkward, socially uncomfortable young man. I would say it took me a while to like sort of come into my own as a man, right? And so my like late high school years, and then definitely my undergrad years, I just wasn't like comfortable being an independent person, and so to me, like, New York was the kind of the only option, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at a few schools. I applied early decision to Columbia because my family was very much like, oh, you should go to an Ivy League school, like that's what you should do, right? They loved the idea of that.
Right.
And my family is awesome, and my mother was an educator, and she was a principal and became a superintendent of schools on Long Island,
Cool.
and yeah, like and my grandmother, my grandmother is one of, I think there was 8 kids maybe in her family, and like she's the only one who went to college, and she went to FIT, and she opened a salon. Like it's like, and so the people in my family have like a really intense work ethic, and so they loved this idea of me like going to Columbia. It's like, if you're gonna do this like musical theater writing, whatever that is, at least be at a really fancy school.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so I applied early decisions to Columbia. I did not get in, which was like devastating for my family. But I really think I always wanted to go to NYU anyway. I just loved the idea of it. I loved where it was in the Village. Like it just felt like kind of right on
at home.
And so the actual like the admission process for me for NYU is like not that intense. I gave like some audio cassettes of stuff I had written, and like had some meetings, and they were kind of like, yeah, sure,
Oh,
and
really?
like, yeah. And my grades were good. I wasn't like a crazy student, but I was a good student, and so it just sort of happened. And like the crazy thing was that my dad, so my dad worked for ITT for many years, just in like data, processing, whatever it's called. I still don't understand what my father did. Like, I still don't get it. It's like computers, punching numbers in, whatever.
Right.
And he lost his job. He was laid off, and then was like looking for a job for like probably like 2 years, right, in my high school experience. And he ended up getting a job at NYU the week after I was accepted to NYU, just in like IT.
Wow.
Right. And at the time, it meant that I went for free, because at the time, if you worked for NYU, it didn't matter where, you got tuition remission for your kids. And so I went to NYU for free. They don't do it anymore, but it was the most insane.
Was it like a tuition exchange program, or like not necessarily, right?
It was like, no, it was like you just like went for free. Like
wow.
Yes, you applied, and like,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, and my father, he like his job was like he was literally working in IT. It was not like a big job at all.
Yeah.
But they just did that for all the employees at that time.
That's pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome.
That is really awesome.
It was great. And so like so many people I know are like, oh my God, you went to NYU, you're still paying it off. And it's like, no, because my dad.
Yeah. I should ask you, you mentioned like feeling socially uncomfortable in high school and undergrad. Like what helped you get out of that? What was the thing that helped you, break out or, become more comfortable?
It was a few things. But honestly, the biggest thing was my kind of like transformation as a human being is directly tied to my my finding my voice as a writer. So in undergrad was like a continuation of high school for me almost. I have a bunch of friends who I've had since like elementary school who I still have. So I sort of had my high school friends. I didn't make any like undergrad friends, right? I just didn't know how to negotiate that kind of environment where you're sort of on your own. And so it was kind of a weird time for me. And at NYU, the program I was in was really geared towards classical composition, which I didn't fully realize when I applied there or whatever. And I had one private teacher, like my private composition lesson, was the one guy on staff who had written musicals. His name was Steve Rosenhaus. And so he was the person who sort of taught me the nuts and bolts about musical theater writing. It was the first time I ever had any kind of instruction on musical theater writing. And so he, you know, kind of like set me on this path of understanding what good musical theater writing was. And it allowed me to be like, oh, the stuff that I respond to, it's, what I like about it is that there's like heart to it. And what I like about it is that it's honest and it feels personal. And so I started writing in a way that felt like, oh, it was taking from my own experiences. And I was someone who at that point, so this is like, you know, early 20s, like end of undergrad, I was someone who didn't feel comfortable talking about my feelings with anyone, or even like with myself. You know, it was like there were things about myself that I always felt like uncomfortable revealing, you know. And I was someone who I was quite large when I was a kid through college, you know.
Sure.
And so I never felt quite comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
You know, and I would like look at people, like look at artists I admired or other, you know, people, friends or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could like, you know, dress like that or act like that or have that kind of confidence. And I would feel like I would be like, I think that the person I want to be is like inside of me.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to like get him out. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And so then the more I started writing and the more I was like, oh, I'm this way that I'm writing, I'm really like, I'm kind of honest, I'm kind of open, and I'm kind of like, I have a confidence in my writing that I don't have in real life. I feel like I started then trying to figure out how to get myself as a man to catch up to the person I was in my writing. And that sort of happened.
Oh, interesting.
Happened during grad school to me. I went right on to grad school at NYU, and that's where I sort of really formed who I was as a writer. And I had like a physical transformation where I lost a huge amount of weight, and I just had a sort of like
different air to you.
Yeah, different air to me. I carried myself differently. And then the more people got like turned on by my writing, and the more that other people were like, oh, this is really good what you're doing, and I could see them respond to it, it gave me a confidence that I'd never quite had before.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I was gonna ask you, like, when you talk about good musical theater writing, general question, what is good musical theater writing?
Oh, I mean, I think good musical theater writing is the honesty. That's if there was like one thing that I think is the cornerstone of good musical theater writing, it's just honest writing. Yeah. But to me, what good musical theater writing is writing that has technique. Yeah. Writing that has writing that has structure and something, even if that structure is to be unstructured, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Writing that is like aware and intentional.
Yeah. Right.
Aware, intentional, honest, human.
Yeah.
Purposeful.
When you say technique, like, do you mean like piano technique, or like technique in terms of storytelling, or
in terms of storytelling, in terms of like craft?
Yeah.
You know, in terms of you know, when words rhyme, they actually rhyme, not like fake rhyme or half rhyme or whatever people say.
Sure.
That just like, it pings me so hard. I'm such a...
You can catch it. It's very easy to catch, I feel like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. It's just like, it just kills me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just kills me. And it's like, I never feel older than I do when I'm talking about rhyme, because it's something that like no one really cares about anymore. And I just like, to me, it's just so ingrained in me. And it's just so like part of what musical theater writing is, that I think it just provides like a clarity to the writing when you're actually rhyming. And so I'm like I will be like, I am the old man.
No, I totally hear that. You know? Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, were you gonna say it, or you want me to say it? Because we're having the same thought.
Go for it. Yeah.
Well, we're thinking a lot about like Sondheim's book and what he writes, and I think after having read Finishing the Hat, it's like he calls them the cardinal, like the sins, you know what I mean, and all this stuff, and like I sometimes they're hard for me to catch. Honestly, he's way better at them because he's much more of a writer. But when I do catch like the rhyme thing, to that point is also rhyming. I watched a video of him recently say this thing that was like rhyming on the word that is important as well.
Yes.
So that's not passive rhymes.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, 100%. And it's like, but that is like, that's the intentionality thing.
Right.
You know, that's like the purposeful thing where it's like, good musicals, like musical could sound any way. You know, to me, it's like, the musical theater in and of itself is not like a genre to me. It's not like a style of music, but so it could be anything. I just want to know that it's purposeful. You know, it's like, I just want to know that whether it's a show that's written by Sondheim or Frank Lesser or Carol Hall or Mickey Grant or a, you know, pop songwriter who's never written a musical before, I just want to know that the choices are intentional.
Right.
Because if they're not, then it's lazy. And there's so much musical theater writing that is really lazy to me.
Yeah. And it's the difference between pop music and musical theater music is exactly that. Is that idea is that you're trying to be as specific as possible when you're talking about a musical, and also my voice is my voice and your voice is your voice, you know? And so when you can, for me, I feel that the most in music theaters lately, that is that sometimes it lacks a voice. You know, there's like a general umbrella sound, but there's not like a sound for, you know.
That's a lot of, most of the singer's job is different than the actor's job.
Yeah.
I mean, as an actor, you're going, well, what am I going into? I'm playing a human now.
Yeah.
So you have to make that far more articulate. You have the responsibility of going, well, I'm writing for a human or whatever it is. I'm writing for something I have to have empathy for. It's complete, and empathy for over a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a story. It's completely a different ballgame.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what you're saying about true rhymes. That is the thing. That is why we do lyrics.
Right.
That is why we're doing song almost.
Well, right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's like why. Yeah, I don't quite understand the thing with like pop writers where they're like, oh, I want to, you know, I don't want it to like sound musical theater. It makes me laugh when people say that, and it's like, well, then why are you writing a musical?
Right.
It's like, why the fuck are you writing a musical then?
Yeah.
Go write a pop
I also
song.
don't really know what that means. I don't really know what. Well, I know what it means because of conventions, right? But like musical theater should not sound like musical theater.
Well, right. It's like, you know, when people say like, I didn't want it to sound like musical theater, what they're saying is, I don't want it to sound like bad musicals.
Yeah,
of which there are many.
Yeah.
And it's like that thing of like musical theater, you know, and it's also like why it gets into, it's in the writing, but it's also like in the orchestration, you know, like I'm so annoyed by so much musical theater orchestration because it all sounds the same.
Yeah.
And I'm always just like, why does this, you know, whatever show it happens to be, I'm obviously not going to say names.
No.
But it's just like everything sounds the same. And it's like, why does every musical have like the same instrumentation? Why is there always a cello there? Why is there, you know, it's like, why?
Yeah.
It's because that's what musicals sound like in 2025. And why do musicals sound like that in 2025? Because of, you know, Jason Robert Brown. And it's like everyone is just ripping off from people who are ripping off from people who are ripping off from people. And it's all like the same 5 people. You know, I feel like it like changes every like 10 years, you know?
There's a difference between that and inspiration.
Yes. Oh yeah, exactly.
Inspiration taking, it just depends, are you going to copy that vision? And Sondheim talks about that, right? His first few musicals he wrote, you were kind of saying a similar thing.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for a writer, definitely for me, is finding your voice. You're going to make a lot of musicals that sound like the person you really like.
Right.
And
no, and it's like, and they should, you know, I think when you're an early writer, like your stuff should sound like the people that you like and that you have a passion for. And it's like, you eventually find your, you know, you eventually find your voice, or you find success ripping off other people. And then you're like, you're one of these writers that sounds like everybody else.
It's funny because to the orchestration point, is like when we had Tim Lyle on here to talk about Rent, he was like, I was always wondering, where are the rhythm sections in musicals? And at the time, by bringing this rhythm section and these guitars and these like he was having his guitarists in the band riff and just do whatever they wanted. And by adding that was a new thing. Now that's so increasingly common that it becomes stale.
Right.
You know, and like that, and that's one point. And then two, the other thing is like the famous Ken Davenport story that I tell, where he was speaking to an investor, and this investor was like, hey, you know, I'll invest when you tell me, get me the next Hamilton. You know, and he's like, right, but the thing is, you wouldn't have invested in Hamilton,
right?
You know what I mean? Because Hamilton was the risk, Rent was the risk. You know what I mean? So my point in that just being like the idea of things not having to sound the same. You know?
Yeah. That's why this last year had, I mean, Floyd Collins and
this wide variety of Yeah.
Yeah, even jukebox, even just in time. What a
Yeah.
great soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah.
Listening to those orchestrations, going even jukeboxes, we can do this.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
you want to
yeah.
completely
And innovate the
change it,
sound. Yeah,
make it wider. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Super interesting. So what I was gonna ask is, you got all of these like these big writer awards, the Ed Cleveland Awards and Jonathan Larson Award, and do you think that instilled you with confidence as well? Like, was that something that helped you in with all of that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like getting those awards early in my career absolutely made me feel like I wasn't crazy for wanting to do
Sure,
this, you know?
sure.
Which they also like, you know, give me money,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
the best, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's awesome. But even more than the money, the thing that was the most helpful was you know, people I did not know saying like, you're on the right path. You're doing well. And the, you know, the Larson Award was particularly meaningful to me because I love Jonathan Larson and have only grown to love him more.
Right.
And getting to like meet his family early on in my career and you know, like, I don't want to like, you know, pat myself on the back, but like, I do feel like my work is not totally dissimilar to Jonathan Larson's work.
Sure.
And it was nice to have the family early on just kind of be like, oh, you're like sort of, you know,
Acknowledge
you
that.
remind me of him, you know, like that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
And made me
yeah.
feel like, okay, I'm not totally off base here.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
negatives.
totally.
And it was so helpful for my family to see, you know, just because in this business, it's like there's so few like, you know, markers of success, you know, and what feels like success to you as an
Or a
artist.
milestone.
Or milestone, yeah. It's like oftentimes, you know, if people aren't like living the life, it's really hard for them to wrap their head around. And so like, you know, both of those awards that I got, it was really nice to be able to like have my parents and my grandparents and my aunts like be
Yeah.
at these like ceremonies with fancy
Right.
you know people at Sardi's or at the 21 Club and be like, okay, I'm doing okay.
You know,
here.
there's something to the idea of sitting around at Christmas or Thanksgiving and people ask you what are you up to and you have an answer, you know? It's like where you're able to say
Yeah.
like, hey, this is like proof that I'm actually doing the thing. I'm not just like sitting back and saying I'm a writer, you know, or an actor or whatever.
Right. Yeah. You know, and like those things, it's funny because they have like a shelf life certainly where it's
Sure.
like, you know, people care about it in the moment and then nobody cares. But like
Yeah.
in the moment it was great, you know, and I do think that it gave me a little boost sort of right out of the gate. It like legitimized me a little bit. Which was helpful in some ways and then hurtful in other ways for
How
sure.
so?
You know, I was really like hyped when I first sort of came on the scene and because I'd like sort of won these awards and what I was doing at the time, this is like when I left grad school or when I graduated from grad school.
Yeah.
In 2005. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like 2005, 2006, 2007. The way that I wrote was just super different than what anyone was doing at that time. For
Sure.
starters, like I had the show that was sort of like my show that I was, you know, out in the world with is the show called The Black Suits, which is about a high school garage band on Long Island trying to win a battle of the bands. And it was a rock musical with young people. And just at the time, like nobody was writing shows for young people. This was right before Spring Awakening came out.
Oh.
And so it was like so novel to have this show with like a youthful energy to it. And you know, I was, you know, cursing in myself. It was stuff that now is just sort of like, oh yeah, cool, big
Everyone
deal.
does it, yeah.
But it just felt like, it definitely felt like, you know, my voice was something that was new, right? So,
Yeah.
and so like I was on, there used to be this paper called the New York Press, you know, which was like the Village Voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the cover of the New York Press.
Whoa.
And it was like just me in like a, you know, fucking polo shirt from Old Navy. And like it said, the next big thing. Joe
Oh my
Iconis.
gosh.
And so it was very exciting until like it didn't actually materialize until like
Well,
what
did
I
you
was
feel
hoping
pressure?
it would. I mean, it felt less pressure and more like momentum,
Yeah.
you know, and then the momentum just like crashed and burned in a
Sure.
really just disappointing
Why?
way. And so, you know, it was like a few things.
Yeah.
It was a few things.
Sure.
I had a show that was I had a show that was in development at a nonprofit theater, and it was sort of part of this whole hype thing, and
Yeah.
it ended up falling apart in a sort of public shitty way, and
Sure.
and so that, you know, kind of hurt it, and I think that kind of hurt things, and you know, everything was sort of it's after that happened, then it was all sort of leading up to, I had this musical called Blood Song of Love. It was the first proper musical that Ars Nova ever produced.
Okay.
They produced Natasha Pierre literally the next year, but this was like the first one, so it was 2010, and it felt like, okay, this is going to be the thing that like explodes this all out. And the New York Times came and gave it a terrible review, and it was just like dead. And then
but you did get Drama Desk Award nominations for it.
I did.
Yeah. So these things happen all the time, though. It's like it's like and the reason why I asked why wasn't just for like what I was asking is like the reason why I wanted to know is because I think like these things happen all the time. Musicals have lives that are so fickle. You know what I mean? Like
so fickle.
Because it's like it's like, oh, this person is writing this new thing, and it might come here, and it might come there, and it might come next year, or it might come in 5, and it might go to your favorite Off-Broadway theater and then transfer, or it'll go to that Off-Broadway theater and nobody will ever hear it again, or it'll become licensed and you'll be doing it in high school.
Right.
It's like you can't,
No.
You never know.
Never.
You know what I mean?
Never,
and,
ever.
So, it's just, there's... The testament to success, of course, is deemed Broadway. But, I remember like Douglas Lyons, when he was here, he was talking about the fact that his testament to success is if he saw a regional theater or community theater do it, somewhere else in the country.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and for me, like, yes, of course, I love the idea of my shows being on Broadway because of how I grew up. And like, for me, I love the idea of Broadway. I still, for all of its problems and everything, which is a whole other conversation, which I'm sure we'll talk about. There's something very magical to me about this idea of Broadway, and so it's like I love the idea of my shows existing next to big corporate whatever, tiny one-man shows or whatever. But when I make a musical, I want it to reach the largest number of people humanly possible, and I want it to run for as long as humanly possible. That is what I'm trying to do every time I make a piece of art.
Right.
And like, of course things run their course, and I would never want to like force something into a life that it shouldn't have. But it's like I work, really, really hard on these things, and I work with collaborators who oftentimes are very close to me personally. So it's not just me. It's like I want these people to be employed. I want people to be able to like get health insurance from the stuff that I'm working on. Of course, so for me, it's that. So it's like when something, like bad reviews or whatever is like a thing that closes a show in a limited run. It's like that is the sadness for me. It's like, oh, this show that I was hoping we could, transfer to another theater, whether it's Broadway or Off Broadway or a tour of regionals. Like it's only going to play for 3 weeks after I've worked on it for like, however many years with these people. And, I'm someone who I've never written a show that I didn't care passionately about. I consider myself very lucky in that I don't have a musical that I'm sort of like, oh, that was the job I took for money.
Fluke,
like the flip side of that is that like I haven't like made a lot of money from like my musicals. Some of them, but not all of them. But I can like lay down on train tracks for all of them, and all of them are like a piece of me. And so I'm really proud of them and I care about them. But then when they don't do what I hope they do, it's so like personal and so crushing, and like that's something that still I just am always like struggling with. How do I like separate myself from the art that I make, and I haven't figured out how to.
I mean, how many musicals would you say that you've written that have yet to see the light of day?
Every show I've ever written has been on a stage. And,
oh, really?
I got fired from one musical that I wrote fully. I
remember hearing you talk about this.
Yeah. It's Diary of a Wimpy Kid is the show. I'm like sometimes I talk about that and I'm like cagey about the title, but it's like the most Googleable thing. Even though I guess like people just don't even like Google the bare minimum anymore. But anyway, I was fired from writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the musical. Right. And so Joe Trace and I wrote it, and we wrote the whole thing. And we got fired because the producers didn't like it. But so that one hasn't been on the stage and never will. But other than that, I haven't written anything that I haven't gotten onto a stage. And I think that speaks more to me being like a real sort of like hustler and bulldozer. I am just like, if I like make this thing, I will like die trying to get it on a stage. And, and a lot of times I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just do it myself. I'll figure out how to do it myself. And like, I've self-produced a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
And and like, that's how I sort of got, started in the first place, like actually professionally working. And so for me, it's just like, I just got to get it on a stage,
Right.
And so I'm really lucky in that way. I will say that very few of my shows have had the lives that I have hoped for them,
Sure.
and think that they deserve. You know, like some shows I have, like they're weirdo little musicals,
Sure.
and they maybe like ran for a couple weeks, and it's sort of like, yeah, that's like all that thing's gonna do. Like
Sure.
maybe some regional will do it one day.
Why? Like, what do you think that is? Like, what is it because of its content? Is it because of its like? What do you?
Oh, like shows of mine that I think it's like, that's not gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, just because it's like we don't live in a theatrical environment that's like open to truly small or weird things. Like it just doesn't. The economics of it just don't work. Like I have this musical that I really love called Rewrite. That's a triptych of mini musicals that all sort of end up being about the same thing, and it's just one of those things.
It was developed at Goodspeed.
It was. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it's, you know, I think it's entertaining. I think it's funny. It's hard to describe. There's not like a role that a famous person would be in. It's
Sure.
It's a strange little show, and it's like, yeah, I would love it. Do I think like if we were sitting here talking and it was like 1998, could I do it somewhere? Yeah, totally. Like it could be like at like, you know, the West Bath Theater Center, or I go to West Side Arts or the Century Theater. Like there were places where you could go see a weirdo little musical at a certain level, and now there's just not. And like, yeah, if it was something where it was like non-ec and nobody's gonna get paid, and it's, you know, and I'm not working with unions, sure, I guess I could do it, but like obviously I can't.
You're trying to support a bigger thing.
And I'm trying to support a bigger thing. You know, it's like, so it's like it's this weird like. It's not even mid-level, it's lower than mid-level. There's just no place for it, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, like where I am in my career, like I can't go to a place like Ars Nova is like not going to produce my work because they're for like, you know, entry-level artists, right? Or they're like for people that you've never heard of before.
Right.
But then I can't go to like Playwrights Horizons and be like, I have this weirdo little musical. Can you do it? Because they would be like, who the hell are you? First of all, and like, and second of all, yeah. They're just like, no, they're not gonna do that. You know,
Funny.
There's just no place to do that kind of stuff.
You know, this isn't like a call out, and I will say though, like it feels as if, and this is a very popular topic, is like Second Stage, I feel like hasn't done a musical in a while, and they used to do, I mean, Dear Evan Hansen premiered their Dogfight, Little Miss Sunshine, like just off the top of my head, Superhero. And I feel like they haven't done a musical in a while. And then I look at like even The Atlantic, I think Buena Vista Social Club was the last thing they did, the musical they did, or Cornelia Street. But regardless, like it just feels like the idea of the musical even happening off Broadway, there's just less of them being made because they're so expensive to produce. So I think that's a testament to it too, you know?
Yeah, it's just like it feels like there's no place to go for the sort of stuff that.
Do you ever, maybe this is a bad question to ask, but like, do you ever feel compelled to write something that's in a like commercially palatable to serve that?
No.
Well, good.
No, but I don't because I don't know what that is. Because I feel like as I look at the landscape of theater and I look at the shows that get produced at fancy New York City nonprofits and on Broadway, the most of them seem to not do well. Like most of them seem to be commercial failures, like the ones on Broadway.
You're right.
And then like everyone talks about it, and you know, we get like all of these think pieces about how Broadway is failing. And then like the ones at nonprofits, they also tend to be like written by famous people or starring famous people, or like based on famous movies, and nobody likes them, and then they close, and we never hear from them again. So it's just sort of like, I don't even know, like if I tried to write something that would be palatable, I don't even know what that would be.
Right.
To me, it feels like the only shows that ever break through, and this seems, again, you know, it's like I'm just someone who's like loved theater and been like looking at theater for my entire life. It just feels like the only shows that ever really break through are the ones that are original, and the ones that feel like nothing else that have come before, and that aren't trying to fit into a mold, but are like, you know, breaking some kind of mold. Yeah. So it's like, I think for me, the surest bet you could take as a commercial producer or as like a nonprofit theater is to like get something in your theater that doesn't feel like it's checking the boxes people have decided you have to check.
Right. And I should mention that, you know, your work is palatable. It's in no way, I didn't mean to say that like it's you know, not like commercially viable. Yeah, right. But you know, well, I think that you're not trying to adhere to some sort of system.
You know? No, yeah. I mean, and that's what's so crazy too, where it's like my stuff, I feel like is so commercial. Like my stuff is like, because I want to entertain an audience, you know? And that's why I do so much concert work. And I get, you know, my probably greatest like artistic satisfaction out of the concert stuff that I do, because I so value the transfer of energy between people on stage and people in an audience. Like that's why I want to do it, you know?
Right.
Like I want to entertain,
Yeah.
and I want to challenge, and I want to do all this stuff, but it's like I always do it with the audience in mind. And like, and the sort of stuff that I love is stuff that doesn't feel avant-garde. I mean, so perhaps there's like a touch of it, you know, but it's like, to me, like that is commercial writing, you know? And it's, but sometimes I do feel like in this current landscape, I feel like, oh, my stuff is like, it's like too commercial for downtown and too downtown for commercial. You know, it's like, I feel like I'm a little bit in the middle in a way.
That is funny.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? It's like you're so right about the original concept, because I look at like one of the biggest successes of the last year, which is maybe Happy Ending, and like that talk about an original piece that's like, you know, and it's been on for over a year and it's doing really well, and it's, you know, it went from a show that nobody heard of to the show that they're coming to New York to see, you know. So
yes, correct.
So
correct.
That's
right. And the show, which like, and before maybe Happy Ending opened, it was all anyone was talking about is like, oh, this big failure. It's like they're postponing because the set's not working. Yeah, right. It was like that had like such like a flop stink to it. That show, you know, like the way everyone was talking about it. And it's like this big huge hit, and people genuinely love it. Is the other thing too.
Right.
It's like the audience genuinely loves that show. It's like this show that nobody asks for.
Yeah.
That isn't based on big IP. It's like,
Well, that's the problem with it fluctuates so much between the commercial art in general. It's fluctuates to the point where you're like, if you try to do something good and it fails commercially, well, at least maybe you have something good. But when you try to do something commercial and then it flops commercially and you sacrifice what was good, you don't have a good show that doesn't make money. So,
so it just winds up being a catch-22.
That's it. That's it. Also, and also it's like, we're in theater, you know, this isn't movies, even though, you know, movies are their own thing, right? It's like, theater is a place that is about the art. And I'm so sorry if you are, and like, just when I hear these, like, you know, some of these producers be interviewed and people talking about the business of it, I just think like, you jackass, why'd you get into theater then? If you want to make money from art, you should have gone into movies, you idiot. What are you doing in theater? Because like it's always been like this. It's so rare that a big fat musical makes any money. And I guess it's harder now. But it's never been easy. It's like, read a fucking book, man.
Even back in the day, we were talking about freaking chorus. I was under the impression when I first got into theater, I was like, oh, all these shows, I was like, dang, like all these shows last forever. And all these things. I'm like, that's only recently. You go back further, these shows were not lasting at all. They would come and go.
They would come and go, and it was like, because that was just the culture, and also it's like the show could make money, like, and because things are different now for 10 million reasons. But it's like, you can have a show that runs for a year and it makes its money and everyone's very happy, and that's like a great, you know, moderately sized hit. Like,
and every now and then, I mean, if you look at, because we talk about Sondheim so often, is like, how many of Sondheim's shows were actual successes? Like, kind of none. You know what I mean? Like,
financially,
they became
not really,
financially. I'm not sure that he ever had like an actual success. It was all, but even Sweetie, I don't even think Sweetie lasted 2 years. Into the Woods is probably the closest.
Money,
But like, pretty much everything else has been. And yet he's considered this pioneer, this person who like, you know what I mean? So
but also that's because when Sondheim was, you know, when he was like churning out masterpiece after masterpiece, we also were living in a time where people in New York, and then, you know, the larger, you know, theatrical community, whatever, they valued good work and they had taste. And it's like the audiences, the people running the theater, the directors, that like everyone, like they used to have better taste. And that is something that I feel like no one ever talks about, that the taste of everyone has just eroded.
That's interesting.
So hugely. And so it's like, if Sondheim was writing those musicals now, I promise you, no one would care.
They would.
He said there's no way you get the problem.
No shot. Or it's, and you know what? And he would like, I think Sondheim's like something like Sweeney Todd. Never mind the fact that Sweeney Todd literally would never happen in 10 million years. You just would never happen. But if, let's say, by some miracle that Sweeney Todd did happen somewhere, some regional theater or something.
In 2026, you're saying?
In 2026, and it premiered for the first time in 2026, I promise you that nobody would care. I promise you that it would play 5 weeks at that regional theater and it would get probably middling reviews and nobody would ever care except for like 15
geeks.
people who care about musical theater.
Yeah.
We're not set up for that, and like nobody would recognize its greatness, and it's something that we'll never actually know. But it's just like it is such a crazy thing.
It is
all of it.
When we talk about the success of a musical, it's always been really hard to identify the elements of a musical that are successful. I think it's super interesting that you identify them to be like an original pieces, because those are the ones that break through. We're talking about Rent and Hamilton and, and even maybe Happy Ending, which is a great example. And I think that there's always I do think that when I look at things like maybe Happy Ending, that feels like a light at the end of the tunnel, because it feels like something that is like oh wait, but there's that, and I could bring you that, and look at that, guys, look at that, and that's a huge, I think that's a huge token of something that like we kind of have to like really hold on to, because or even like a Kimberly Akimbo, that's still on tour and like did a reasonable amount of time on Broadway, like, so things like that where you're able to like latch onto those things and say, okay, these are the pillars, this is the few things that I have left to hang on to,
but that's it. But it's like, and something like Kimberly Akimbo, and it's like, so whether Kimberly Akimbo made its money back or anything, eventually I guess it'll make money, but that's where it's like, that show was a love show. It ran for a long time on Broadway. It's a little show about a woman with progeria. It's like that, any person attached to that show should be really, really proud. Yeah. Even if they lost money, that's one I would say, like, if you feel anything other than joy from being associated with Kimberly Akimbo, then you should get the hell out of theater. Because you're doing the wrong thing.
It's true.
You're doing the wrong thing.
It's true.
It reminds me of what Jerry Zaks was saying when he was sitting here. It was what he was saying about, and that was back in there, like pre-social media he's talking about, where it's like everybody wants to be the person that knows.
Oh, sure.
Everyone wants to be the person that was like, I knew it. And I feel the same way about flop shows, where it's like, oh, that's a flop. I'm the one that knows it.
Yeah.
Now they post it. Now they comment on it. Now they know where it is. Now that just spreads to
the language around shows and like the talk becomes its own cesspool before it even enters the space. Before we even are able to look at it from an objective value, we go, I heard. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I know. I mean, and that is like, that's something that I dealt with so hugely on Be More Chill, like when it got to Broadway, like pre New York, right? Pre New York, it was, we got to New York because of people being excited
because of the same thing in the other
direction, you know. And then as soon as we got to New York, it was like it flip flop, and then it just became like the entire Be More Chill New York experience was combating, negativity and the like, well, I heard like that vibe, and it's so crazy. To, which is why I like shows like maybe Happy Ending, when I see it, starting, it makes me so happy that a show like that
there's hope
can come back and be like,
well, let me ask you about it. I want to ask you about the inspiration behind Be More Chill, because this is a book, but how did it come to you?
It came to me because my agent at the time, Scott Chaloff, he had read the book. It's a YA novel. And he just said, I read this book and it reminded me of you. And he was like, he didn't say you should make this into a musical. He said, this reminded me of you. You should read it and see if it inspires you in any way. And this was in 2011. So I was coming off of this Blood Song of Love thing, right? Where it was like really hyped and then super disappointing. And I was in like a kind of a rough spot in my life. And I read it and I immediately was like, oh yeah, I totally respond to this and I should make it a musical. And it was one of those things that I read and I know exactly how to do this. I know exactly what the vibe should be. I really loved the characters. I loved that the characters were sort of archetypal teen characters, but then they didn't behave in the way that you expect them to behave in a story like that. I'm a huge film fan. And so I love like 80s teen horror movies. I love 1950s monster movies. And so to me, this was like the ultimate combining of those things.
Right.
I loved the idea of doing to me, it felt very old fashioned, and Be More Chill still feels very old fashioned to me as far as like the writing of it. I think it's like an old fashioned musical comedy. I liked doing that. I liked doing something that was about young people that could talk about big issues but have a sense of humor to it and have the sci-fi element that felt really like fresh and weird to me. And so that's sort of how it came about, And
what were you thinking when you read the book in terms of musical quality, like in terms of like, you mentioned how this sounds like? What did it sound like to you?
To me it sounded like contemporary music as filtered through a 1980s sound, because I was really tying it to 80s teen movies.
Yeah.
But at the time, so this was like, so Be More Chill premiered, its world premiere was 2015, right?
Yep.
And Stranger Things came
True
out
River, right?
2016. Yeah. And so we were the year
funny.
before, year before Stranger Things. And at the time, like pre 2015, in like pop music, that was like when the sort of like looking back to 80s like synth sounds and everything was like really fresh, and it was like coming from indie music. And so for me, I was like, oh, modern pop music is so tied to like 1980s right now that it feels like it's such a good synthesis to do this, because I could do something that's not like a period piece, like it's not set in the 80s, but it's informed by those sounds, and it can simultaneously feel like a throwback and feel modern.
Yeah.
You know, so to me that was just kind of like, oh, this is what it is. And I was really wanting to write stuff that felt like it was, you know, explicitly referencing John Carpenter film scores, you know, like 80s horror stuff, which is, you know, where it all came from. And then the eventual sound of the show, it then sort of took on a life of its own, you know, but that's what I was pulling from. Yeah. You know, and it was like, and it was so funny because then when Stranger Things came out the next year, it was just like, son of a bitch, like that's what we were trying to do, man. Like, and now it's just like, it's like a recognizable sound, but at the time it felt like I had to constantly be like explaining the sound. Right. You know?
And I think there's something about like synthesizers that sound super sci-fi. You know what I mean? Like there's something about them that sound like, you know, I don't know why, like the Jetsons, like there's something about it that sounds futuristic.
Computer science to make it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. It's like literally made by computers, you know, it is why. And for Be More Chill, you know, like the actual, the sort of genre elements of the score, right? And when I say genre, I mean like this like 80s horror sound. And then also there's a huge part of it that's like 1950s monster movie stuff, which there's like a theremin in the orchestration, you know, and it's sort of that idea. That stuff is in the writing itself. You know, it's not just the kind of thing where I was just writing songs and then I was like, oh, then I'm going to add like a theremin. Like I was conscious of it as I was writing. Yeah. But at the heart of it, the bones of those songs are like old-fashioned musical theater songs.
I was going to talk about this.
You can like play them on a piano and you get everything, you know, you need to get.
But also they're also in some cases literally like pastiche versions of, like I think about the telephone number, telephone hour number from, I'm blanking on what it's called right now, from Be More Chill. Smartphone hour. Yeah. Like it was a modern spin on exactly that, and I think that you know, this is maybe a silly question, but how much of your musical knowledge and the wide variety of this, like, you know, kind of like history book that you have in your brain of musicals helps you inform when you're looking to do things like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think everything. It informs everything I do. You know, I think, but I am just you know, I'm like a mosaic of my influences and my obsessions, you know, so they're all in there and they come out. And like with something like that, specifically the Smartphone Hour, part of that came from like, you know, we have this show where people have phones and we're talking about technology and we're talking about computers and social media, and it felt so modern that I loved the tension of doing something that it's like, and also this is a number that was done, you know, in the 60s. Right. And it's like essentially the same thing. You know, and it's and the way they were using telephones is just the way we're using smartphones. And it's, you know, and it gives me like a perverse glee, you know, when people sort of, you know, when people like talk shit about Be More Chill and they talk about it like, you know, it's like it's going to be dated and, you know, and that kind of thing, which was always so forefront of my mind. Because it's just like, well, I don't think the smartphone, I don't think the telephone hour is dated. You know, it's it's not about the technology, it's about how you use it and things, you know? And so that was sort of like where that came from.
I was going to ask you, how did you get this produced originally at Two River in the first place?
It was, you know, like every project I've ever done has been like a battle. Like it truly has been like, nothing has been easy. Yeah. Everyone's been a battle except for the original production of Be More Chill. Like it was the one that just kind of, it was, you know, relatively painless. Like I had the idea to make it a musical. I knew I didn't want to write the book. to it. Joe Trace was a playwright who I was a fan of.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know him before. We met. He knew the book really well because he worked at a bookstore and loved YA novels. And so he was like, yeah, I would love to write it. And so we both had a relationship with John Diaz, who was the artistic director of Two River Theater.
Oh, cool.
Joe knew him really well, and I knew him just because I had gone to Two River to do like a cabaret night of NYU grads.
Oh.
And I sang a song of mine, and it's the song called Helen, which is about pornography and many other things, and John really liked it, and he remembered me as like, oh, the guy who sang that song about porn, you know. And so it just felt like a cool match, and we approached the theater and we're like, oh, would you ever want to commission us to write this musical called Be More Chill? And they said, yeah, sure. And so we wrote it, and we spent a few years working on it, and we did a couple readings. And they did the world premiere, you know? And so like we started writing it in 2012. Yeah. And the world premiere was June 2015.
Did you know that you wanted to record a cast album? Like how did that idea come about?
No. So the cast album, you know, to me, I really am very old school, and I used to be even more old school. And so I was always kind of like, I don't want to make a cast album until we have the ultimate version of the show. Of course. Because I was so, you know, brought up where it's like, that's when you do it, you know, you know, you do it when you have the show. And so a cast album was so not on my mind as we were making Be More Chill. And what happened was, once again, it was like a really hyped show, and everyone was so excited about it. And we opened, and all these producers were coming to see it, and it felt like, oh, the audience is loving the show. This could be the one finally that like goes to New York and does the thing. And again, the New York Times came to see it, and they gave it a terrible review, and it just killed all of the momentum, like killed the show. Every producer who had tickets to come see it canceled their tickets. Like, it's just what happens. It's the nature of the business. And so it really felt like the show was dead. Like, it was just like nothing is going to happen with this show. And the man who was on the board of the theater, the head of the board of the theater, his name is Bob Recknitz, who has since passed away. He loved the show so much. And Bob was I think he was in his late 70s at the time. He just connected with the show. Yeah. And he was just like, this show is great. I don't understand why, just because the New York Times said it was bad, this won't have a further life, and it deserves to be recorded. And so he and Kurt Deutsch, who at the time was running Ghostlight Records, who's been very supportive of me and my work, they got together, and Bob paid for it. He paid for the whole album. Wow. And they made it happen. And so we recorded it a few days after the show closed. Wow. And yeah, that's how it happened. And honestly, I didn't push for it at all. Like, again, like any other thing I've ever done, I have like pushed the boulder up the hill and made it happen. This one really just happened. And for me, I was kind of ambivalent about the cast album being recorded because I want to do the show again. I wanted the show to continue. Right. And so for me, recording that cast album really felt like it felt like it was like recording a headstone or something for the show. You know, it sort of was like, okay, this will be the thing that lets people know that the show existed, and nothing more than that. And then we released it on Halloween 2015. And I've told the story before, but I remember I do an annual Halloween show at the Laurie Beachman Theater on 42nd Street. Yeah. And I was walking to Party City on 34th to get like decorations and stuff for the Halloween show the morning that the album came out. And I don't listen to my own stuff a lot, right? But as I was walking, I was like, I'm gonna listen to Be More Chill because it came out today. And I was listening to More Than Survive. And I got to the end where everyone sings the na-nas, na 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 na, and I just started crying. And I was just like, I think this is really good, and I don't understand why it's never going to be on a stage again. And I just genuinely, I was like so sad, being I don't know if there's something wrong with me that I think this is good, but I just do, and I don't get why we can't do it again, you know? Right. And so so that the album came out, and then it wasn't until 2 years later that it really exploded.
But what happened is, like, it was, in my opinion, it was essentially the first of its kind where it exploded. I mean, like, for me, it was one of those things where I was getting into musicals at the time, and it was like, no, you got to listen to this. and like I said, it was like that and Hamilton, and it felt, I mean, it felt equally as huge, where everyone was talking about it. And I was like, oh, when was this on Broadway? Like, that was my inkling, was like, when was this on Broadway? And when I had heard that it was, and I was like, oh, that's really strange, because everyone I know is talking about this piece right now. This is pre-TikTok, obviously. This is so it's really is like a word of mouth, and also like, I guess, Instagram kind of adjacent thing.
Sure.
And particularly Michael in the Bathroom. Could you have ever thought that that was going to be the number? Was that the number for you?
No, I mean, I always liked the song a lot. You know, I was very pleased with the song. Like when I wrote it, I thought, yeah, that's, for me, it's like if I write a song and the song is what I intended to set out to do, that's when I feel good. That's when I'm like, I did a good job. I did what I was trying to do. It's like, I don't know if it's successful for anybody else. I don't know if anyone's gonna like it, but I know that that is the song that I wanted to make. And that's how I felt with that song. And I had an inkling that people would respond to it. And you know, it felt like in the theater when we did it in Jersey, that song very clearly touched a nerve with people. It resonated. But I never could have imagined that it would take on a life like the life it has, you know, taken on and continued to take on. And I'm really, you know,
I knew Michael in the Bathroom before I knew Be More Chill. You know what I mean?
Great.
Like that's and that seemed to be amongst my age group the thing.
It was like the gateway drag, you know? Like it was the thing that people heard, and then they're like, oh, what is this from? Which I also love, because it's like the most old-fashioned way to get into anything in the arts, where it's like you're genuinely responding to a song, and then you're exploring. And yes, like algorithms, you know, fed it to people, but it only happened because people just responded to it, you know? And it's like, it's the same as people like, you know, being like, oh, I just got the new 45 from whoever, you got to hear this.
But it also sets a precedent, because nowadays things like that happen all the time, but they happen because people try to make them happen. So the fact that it happens subconsciously and it was a byproduct of something feels almost even more effective, because I don't even know how much the algorithms were doing their algorithmic thing back then. Now they're more of like you feed it and it provides. But back then it really just almost felt like a very adjacent thing to just word of mouth. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it was word of mouth that intersected with technology, which is sort of like, you know, I could never hope for more. And I think the reason that it had such an impact is because it was organic. It wasn't fake. It wasn't a big company, you know, shoving it in people's faces so they couldn't get away from it. That's why it didn't, you know, that's why it's even the song, like the show is the show, but it doesn't have like a shelf life, you know, because it was genuine. That people actually like came to it.
Actors, I mean, young actors resonated with it. They all want to sing.
And it's also, I should mention, a testament to George. I was just going to say, it also is a testament to George, because George really sold every last aspect of that song.
You just see yourself doing everything. Trying to see them. It was really a special moment.
And you know, like I'm someone who, I'm obsessed with actors. I love collaborating with actors. All I ever want to do when I'm a writer is to give actors something to work with and something to sink their teeth into. And you know, George's voice obviously is a great voice, but that's not why the performance is good. It's because it's a great acting feat. You know, it is true musical theater, where he's using all of the tools at his disposal, and he's being really honest and really human. It's not about a riff that he's doing. It's not about like him, you know, hitting a particular note. And like, yes, he sings high, I guess, in the song, but that's just not, nobody would connect to it in the way they connected to it if it was just about the vocal gymnastics or pyrotechnics or whatever. And that's always what I want to, you know, what I want to be giving to actors. And so, yeah, it's just remarkable. And like, I do think that song plus Georgie's performance created something that's kind of bigger than than any of it, you know?
My favorite song from that show is I Love Play Rehearsal.
Oh, thanks.
And was Stephanie a part of the Two River production?
Yeah, of course.
So like, I mean, talk about, she's a mega star now, right? You know, but do you ever think, this is a silly question, but do you ever think of a song like that song or Michael in the Bathroom and you're like, I think people are going to use this in their books one day? Do you ever have that thought?
I don't, not when I'm writing it. No. You know, sometimes I do. The truth is that a lot of my songs don't work particularly well for auditions, because for a few reasons. One of them is that the songs are like so tied to the shows that they're in, they don't do great like being extracted. And then the other is that they're like so long, and they go on like such a journey that it's hard sometimes to just take a little piece out of them. So I never think that. I'm usually surprised, where it's like, oh wow, somebody found a really good cut of that song. Now they can do it, and it works well for them. But sometimes kids will be like, oh, I want to sing like whatever song. And it's like, oh man, you shouldn't do it because it's gonna like,
Sure.
I know it's like, if you could do a 6-minute song, cool, but it's like,
Right.
for a minute, like
13, 16
you better
bar
do
cut.
something
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
When did you get word that this was going to transfer to Broadway? How did that work itself out?
It was really wild. So like I mean, when everything started happening with the viralness of the album, I noticed it, George noticed it, Joe Trace noticed it, and then we all, got really excited about like fanning the flames of that, just from like our own Instagram account. Like I ran the Be More Chill, Instagram,
Oh,
and
is that
Facebook,
right?
and
Wow.
yeah, along with the great Bailey Ford, who's a good friend of mine, who at the time was like a college student, I think, and she like helped me make the Facebook page and everything, and I tried to get so many producers interested in it. Nobody was interested. No, not one regional theater wanted to do it. And I was, saying like, we've got like, it's like 1 million streams this week and all this back. And like, there's 100,000, followers on Twitter. And the reaction, and this was only 10 years, not even 10 years ago. The reaction was like, that's cute. It was that's so sweet. You think streams are a real thing. They just didn't understand it. And it was like, it just really speaks to how behind this business is.
75% of Broadway shows at the moment don't even come close to 100,000 followers, like on anything.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
easy.
But
and so I was like, I felt like I was like raging against, like the wind, just being like, I swear this is a real thing. This is how people consume media these days. And this producer named Jerry Gehring, who I met through various things and who had seen a show of mine, an Iconis and Family concert that we did at this place called Musical Theater Factory, which is a musical theater nonprofit run by my friend Shakina Nafak, that was run out of a porn studio, like a literal working porn studio on 40th Street. They ran this like musical theater nonprofit out of. God. And so I did this show in a porn studio, and this guy Jerry came to see it, and he like loved it. He thought the show was great. And he was running, and he still does run the musical theater program at St. Francis College in Connecticut. And his students loved to Be More Chill, and they wanted to do it. And so they did Be More Chill because the show was licensed before we were in New York. Because like I licensed the show in 2017, I think, because I never thought it was gonna have another production, Right. And so they did Be More Chill, and then he saw how young people reacted to it, and it made him be like, I think that there's something here. And he was like the only one. And so we decided we're going to do this run off Broadway, a commercial 10-week run. Right. And we partnered with my great friend, Jennifer Ashley Tepper, who's been with me for so many years. And we were like, let's see what happens. And it was like this like explosive thing, right? So then we did it at the Signature Theater, a rental for 10 weeks. Wow. In 2018 in the summer, and it was like so crazy sold out.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it was like impossible to get a ticket. And there was so much hype around it. And because the sales were so extraordinary, people started being like, oh, is this going to go to Broadway? And that really was like the furthest thing from my mind. Like, I was just like, I just want to do another production of this show. I want to work with the artists who I love, who made this show.
Right.
I want to do a show in New York City. I hadn't done a musical in New York City at that point in like 8 years. Right. It's like I want to like sleep in my own bed and like go to see my show. And so I was like, I just want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy these 10 weeks and not think about what happens next. And then of course, the second it starts selling, it's just like, oh shit, maybe this will be a thing. Maybe this happen. And so then it just became about like, it's about the Times review. It's like you have the box office, all you need is that Times review. And if that Times review is good, this is going to happen, right? So then it was like all this tension leading up to opening night off Broadway, and the Times comes and they give it a review, and it's like even worse than the review that they gave it in New Jersey. And it's a totally different review, a totally new reviewer, and it's like even worse. And like I talk about this, and everyone is always like, people act like I exaggerate the importance of the New York Times review for a musical, like the sort of musicals that I write, but it's just what it is, Yeah. And like it was so much so that the opening night party for Be More Chill off Broadway, it was like I was at a funeral. Like people were coming up to me saying, "I'm so sorry. because
it is like that though. We've been to plenty of opening nights where when it's a good review, it's a party, and when it's a bad review, people just start leaving.
You feel it. It's like, and it's something that I actually like love it because you feel so old fashioned. Where it's like you see the people like get their coats, and you're like, oh man, I know what that means. But it's so terrible, and so then we continued to play, and that opening night, and I was distraught, and Jen Tepper said to me there, like in the opening night, and it's like everyone is so upset. She just was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this thing that people do. We're not playing by the rules that people play by. Like, we got this. We're not doing this. And she just had this like unmovable confidence. And she made it happen. And they, the Schuberts loved the show, and they were just like, yeah, we think this show is great, and we love the
and you had numbers.
Energy.
You had numbers behind you.
Yeah, we had numbers like extraordinary.
Right, that's what I mean. Like you had numbers online, and you had the proof is in the pudding. People are showing up; they're buying the tickets to see the show.
Yeah. And that's like how we got. That's how we got to Broadway. It was just human beings responding to the show and believing in it. And, and we literally did none of the things that shows are supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's like shows like ours to get to Broadway. It's like, like we didn't play a fancy nonprofit theater. We didn't StarCast it.
Right.
We didn't get good reviews. But it was just like people, human beings love the show.
How much of it did you, in terms from Two River to Off Broadway and then subsequently Broadway, how much of it did you adjust or change? And two-parter with that is when you see the reviews and the reviews aren't as positive, are you considering what they write in terms of critique per se?
So I mean, for me, I read reviews of my work just because they affect me so hugely.
Right.
Artistically, I can't help but take in anything that I read or hear about my show, even if I know it's bullshit, or even if I don't agree with it, I'm taking it in. So it has to affect me in some way.
Yeah.
I do not like read an important review and then say, okay, how can I like change things to help what this person is feeling?
Yeah.
Because it would never work. It's like, because the stuff that I'm writing, I'm writing from the heart, and I'm being honest. I'm writing the way that I know how to write. It's like I can't write to please someone, because I'll just end up I'm never gonna please them, and then I'm gonna sort of go against myself and go against what I'm trying to do. But I made a ton of changes in between Two River and New York, and myself and my collaborators, like, we always wanted to, we always thought that Two River would be the first step on our journey. We didn't feel like we were complete. The crazy thing is that because the show blew up post Two River, it was then this thing where we were like having to combat people who loved the show, their allegiance to like certain writing things that we ended up changing, just because we were like, oh, we're artists, we're developing this show, there are things that we always wanted to do that we didn't get time to do at Two River.
Which is why you didn't want that cast album to be
but it's like, we never would have gotten anywhere with that cast album. Right. And so it's like, that was the wildest experience, to be like, oh, I'm rewriting and I'm actually making people who love this thing angry because they think this thing is done,
Right.
And that is something that, like, moving forward, that was a cool lesson for me to be like, okay, I just have to be conscious of this,
right?
Of what I'm letting be in the world and when I'm letting it be in the world, and just I don't know. It's that's been an interesting that was an interesting collaboration, myself and the Be More Chill fans who felt very personal about the changes I was making. But I've always said that something that I love about theater is that all of these things can exist, and it's like, and I go back and forth. Like, I made changes for New York, and then I made other changes for London, and ended up going back to some of the things that I did years prior to New York when we did the show in London. And all of the versions exist. Like, all of them are out in the world. And like, if you like one cast album better, you can listen to that cast album. If you like one version of the show better, you can do that. And so, and in the way that, like, as someone who like is obsessed with musicals, it's like, yeah, I like, this song from the Chess concept album better than this recording on the Broadway album. And I like, it's like, they're all there. there. It's
Right.
like it's alive. You know?
Yeah, for sure. That it's to the point that theater is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
What did you feel was the biggest difference in coming to Broadway, and what do you think? I mean, you talk about the chatter that was happening and the negativity in certain respects, but what do you feel was the biggest thing you learned from that Broadway experience?
The biggest thing I learned?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know what I learned, because it was really hard.
Yeah.
It never was not hard, because we never were in an okay place with the show. I was always in danger of it was always trying to get something, trying to make something work, trying to keep it open. The only time I ever felt like with the show was our closing, which was like the saddest. It was both. It was really sad and it was really celebratory, and it was the only time that I felt like I could stop fighting. Like our literal closing performance. That was the only time I ever felt. And so it's like, so weirdly, that's like my happiest emotional memories as far as the New York component of it was like talking about the show itself was like when we knew we were going to Broadway and we're still playing off Broadway. That just felt like that there was hope there. That was really great. And then closing felt like, okay, it's over. We did it.
Yeah.
It didn't end the way we wanted it to end, but we did it, and we were here, and but the thing that was really shocking to me coming to Broadway with Be More Chill was there was this real sense that I felt, and it might just be my own shit that I'm putting on it, but I felt like people, it felt like there was anger at how we got to Broadway. It felt like people were a little bit like pissed off at us or something, and sort of acted like we were just like these like loud, annoying kids who just like weaseled their way.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was very palpable, and I was so shocked at how mean people were to the young people who came to see that show. I mean, and you can look at, the reviews, you can look at the things that were written about the show from the time, and there is so much awful writing about the young people being excited to see our musical, and there is so much writing in reviews where people would talk about like young people, who, were singing along to the songs and really just kind of like this idea of like, it felt like people turning their noses up at
elitist.
it. It was so elitist. And to me, I was always like, but this isn't a musical that's like adapted from a big movie. This is such a mom and pop show. Right. It's not a jukebox musical. It's like young people are singing show tunes. Right. Shouldn't we be excited that these young people are, I mean, forget the fact that it's like young people are like loving the show and loving the theater because of it and getting excited to see like a new real musical, but it's like they're singing along to show tunes, and also like they weren't literally singing along in the theater. Right. And I, Ain't Too Proud opened the same season as us, and everybody loved Ain't Too Proud, and it was like big hit and like great, it's a great show. But I remember I went to see Ain't Too Proud, and there were all of these, like Bridge and Tunnel people there, the people that I grew up with, singing along at full fucking voice. And I remember thinking like, no one is writing about, fucking Kathy from Westchester just like singing her heart out
to the way you make me feel.
To the way you make me feel. Yeah. And it's like we're ragging on kids for like singing songs in the bathroom.
It's also funny because the show that won Best Musical only a year or two prior was Dear Evan Hansen, which attracted a similar crowd and audience and got all these rave reviews. And I think there's something there too that I think is like perverse in a way, because I'm like that. I feel like a lot of the people who were seeing Be More Chill were seeing Dear Evan Hansen, and Dear Evan Hansen was so embraced with open arms that and Dear Evan Hansen's a great show, but it's just like it's just ironic to me.
Yeah, but Dear Evan Hansen like had the it had the approval of critics and industry, and it was like Dear Evan Hansen like came into town as a show that was like this is smart. And so I'm not saying that like a certain type of theater person is like a sheep, but like there's like sheepish behavior. And so it's like we were told that is a smart show, even though it is about young people. Yeah. And so everyone looked at it like, oh, it's a smart show. And so, audiences are going to that and they're leaning in because they've been told, oh, this is art. Yeah. Whereas with Be More Chill, they were told this is a piece of shit. and it's for kids.
Sure.
And so, the sort of regular theater crowd that was coming in to be more chill was, whether or not they liked it or not, they were coming to it from a place of, I've been told this sucks.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just different. And it's so hard to
break out of that.
It's so hard to break out of that.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, the number one comment that I received from like people who were sort of like the normal theater crowd, adults who went to see Be More Chill, was, I was so surprised how much I liked it. Number one. And it's like, why? Why would you be surprised? It's like, because you were told it was a piece of shit.
Sure.
And it's just like, it's just the way the business works,
Do you find that model, the idea that you had this cast album and then you had, the way that Be More Chill got to where it is, do you find that model is successful moving forward? Do you take that away and say like, hey, I think I might want to come out with my out of town tryout album for this piece and then move it that way? Do you think that that's something that is No, because I think it was organic, and I think that it happened at a time that was so set up for it to happen, and I think that it will just never happen again like that. Sure.
And so it's like every show now wants to do that because they thought it, because everyone assumes it's
say
like an engineered thing, so everyone is like, oh, I'm going to make an album, it's going to explode.
It happens a lot now. Yeah.
It's like, but it's like, it'll, for me, it'll never quite happen in that way again, I don't think. And if it does, great. But I didn't set out to have that.
But it's
happen
not a
the first
formula.
time. So yeah. So for me, it's like
formulaic.
I did a musical that I love so much called Love and Hate Nation that opened right before the pandemic, which was not a good time to open a new musical.
Sure.
And I made a cast album of that because I'm just, I'm trying to keep it alive and trying to keep it out there. But I'm not expecting that to, be the next Be More Chill.
But it does work in the sense of what's the word? Immortalizes the show, Broadway Bounty Hunter too. Like
yes.
It's like it immortalizes the show in a way that even though I missed it, I can go listen to it. You know what I mean? And I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, and that's like the thing about musicals too, where like more than any other art form, it's like if there is not a recording, that show does not exist.
It feels like it.
It's just like for the large majority of people, for theater obsessives, sure. And it's like I was a kid who was trading bootlegs, and like I was a kid who had the the soundboard recording of Carrie and like March of the Falsettos at the at the Lucille Ortel. But that's not most people. So it's like to get a recording. So it's like for me, I'm always hoping that I will eventually get a recording of a show. Right. It's just like, when do you do it?
This sounds bad, but there have been shows that I've been so excited for, original musicals, that I would be like, I'm nervous that we're not going to have a cast recording for this. And I voice memoed them. And it sounds terrible, but it's one of those things that I'm like, I did it. I just put my phone on the thing. I put it on airplane mode, whatever. And I voice memoed it because I was nervous that I was like, this is bound to be good. And I want to be able to hear it and listen to it again. And I'm nervous that I'm not going to get the chance to do that.
Like you bootlegged it?
I didn't record it. I sat there and I watched the show, but my phone was on the floor and the voice memo was on.
You piece of shit.
I'm like almost nervous to put that out there, but I did do it.
No, do it. Dude, I am a huge bootleg person. I mean, I would bootleg shows in college. This was like right before iPods came out in like the early 2000s, and so I would bootleg them on like a handheld like cassette, like fucking like Macaulay Culkin and Home Alone 2. I do it all the time.
That's funny.
And I still have them. And it's I have like every version of the Wild Party and Broadway previews. Please.
Like, I don't think it's that harmful, but I remember being like, I went to go see the Into the Woods, the Stephanie J. Block cast, and they had already made the Sarah Bareilles version of that cast recording. And I was like, oh man, all I want is to hear Andy Carl and Joshua Henry's Agony. And I just like kind of like press record,
of course. No. And I've actually I've gotten out of the habit of doing it.
I don't do it that often. I do it very specifically.
Do it every fucking time. Like I think that it only increases the people's love of the theater. Yeah. It's like it's the obsessives, It's like no one's bootlegging Stephanie J. Block and Into the Woods and then not buying a ticket to see Boop or like whatever people think. It's just so like, come on.
That's true. And if you look at it now, I mean, like the bootleg culture has had this strange like hush hush thing. I mean, Death Becomes Her is like, we have to look at that TikTok thing that's going on with Death Becomes Her. Is like a lot of people are bootlegging the shows and people are watching it and it's encouraging people to go see it in a 100% perverse way.
It just is. It just simply is.
Yeah.
And it's like yes, of course, like people shouldn't be like filming shows.
Yeah.
For me, the whole thing is like, because I'm like an audience stickler. It's like I need a good audience. You should not do anything that distracts from anyone else.
For
so
sure.
It's like for me, it's like bootleg every show. Just figure out a good way to do it so no one sees.
So, yeah.
It's the ultimate that.
And so that you don't bother others around you. You
Don't
know what I mean?
bother
If you're-
anybody around you.
Yeah, right.
Don't, it's like
Be respectful.
Sell it, be respectful. But
Right.
it's like I feel, I get into trouble because I'm so like pro bootleg culture.
Sure.
But I literally watch bootlegs all the time.
Yeah. And these TikTok clips now, I mean, like, I'll be honest with you, I see them and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I saw Audra and Gypsy already and I was gonna go no matter what. But gosh, if I see that and there's like how am I not gonna stop and watch her version of Some People? How am I not gonna do that? Of course I'm gonna do that,
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just think it's so, I think it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I would much rather watch a bootleg than a pro shot.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's like a bootleg at least is like live.
Yeah.
And it's
there's
like,
something about it that's a little bit like, I don't know, like, what's the word? Raspy. Yeah, it's just like a raspy.
It's a regular night.
Yeah, but if I think about it,
Okay.
I remember we went to go see Here We Are, and when we went to see Here We Are, I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know what the future of this thing is going to be,
Right.
but I need Sondheim, and I don't know if I'm ever going to come back, so I need Sondheim's final score,
course.
like, so I just like, and I put it down, and that was it, like.
But the way you just said it, like they don't even know they're being recorded now, like then that makes me feel bad. Like this is like one of those things that I'll say, and then there'll be like a random actor, like because then it's like I understand, and like the actor thing is like you shouldn't. It's like meant to just be once, but also it's like I just feel like
there's a two-sided argument.
They're being watched, but
I mean, they are being watched by 1,000 people right now, but
we're living in trying times. And it's just like if you're putting yourself on
be respectful
and social media I don't know, whatever.
Be respectful.
Yeah, I don't want to get canceled.
I want to talk about this because this is so important to me. These two songs that you wrote were so important to me, and I didn't realize you wrote them until like I don't know a couple of years ago. And that is Broadway Here I Come and the Goodbye Song. Those songs are like the Goodbye Song is my favorite song in the entire Smash canon. I had that on my personal like playlist. Like I'm one of those people. I don't have multiple playlists. I have one playlist with 700 songs.
Whoa.
And then I would like
That's
listen
psychotic.
to. I know. It's like a little crazy. But they're like my bike songs. They're also my sleep songs, and they're also my like morning songs and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye Song is one of the few musical theater songs that's like in amongst that canon because I love that piece.
Oh, thanks.
And I always make the joke that whatever my first Broadway show will be, I will be standing in front of a marquee and I will be putting Broadway Here I Come upon my because I love that song and I just feel like that's such a Broadway tune. It's such a, give my regards to Broadway type of like Broadway Here I Come tune. It's inspiring. For the longest time, I think I just thought Jeremy Jordan wrote it, but
my work here is done.
Yeah, right. But tell me how you got involved in Smash and how this came to you and the inspiration behind Broadway Here I Come and then Goodbye Song.
Yeah. So Smash happened because Broadway Here I Come was a song that I wrote before Smash.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So it was just a standalone. So I do these concerts, these Iconis and family shows.
Right.
And it was just a song that I wrote that was really born from a Great Depression. My own personal Great Depression, not the Great Depression. I'm 102 years old.
Right.
And it was after my Blood Song of Love show closed.
Yeah.
I was really, really sad. And I was really struggling with this idea of like, yes, I want this success. I want my shows to continue. I want to be on Broadway. And also this thing that I love so much and this art form that I love so much, it also is like making me feel like I want to kill myself. Like it was like truly, that intense. And so I had this idea to write a song called Broadway Here I Come with an exclamation point.
Right.
And the I knew that the conceit of the song would be that it would work in two ways. One, someone who like wants to come to the big city and make it, and this very sort of optimistic, hopeful, I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it happen thing that I felt for real. And then the other way is like a person jumping off a building and heading toward the street of Broadway, being like, Broadway, here I come, because I've jumped off the building. And so that's where that song came from. And I performed it for the first time in a different version at the Duplex in this show that I booked. I think it was like June. It was in late June of 2010.
Yeah.
And it was like a real sort of off the cuff kind of night. And I sang Broadway Here I Come. And people thought it was really funny. People laughed a lot at it because I really sort of tapped into like the sort of dark humor of the tension of those two things. And then like a year later, I was doing a concert and Krysta Rodriguez, my friend, was in it, and I said, oh, I need a song for Krysta to sing. I got to return to that Broadway Here I Come song because I kept thinking about it, and I was like, it's almost there, but it's not there. And so then that's when I wrote the bridge and I rewrote some lyrics, and then when Krysta sang it, she's so tapped into the soul of it and made it, you know, very earnest and very serious. And it felt immediately like, oh, this song has like a power to it that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And then it was just a song that I would do at concerts all the time. And my great friend Molly Hager sang it all the time. And one night we did a gig at the Beachman on 42nd Street, the West Bank Cafe. Yeah. And I was helping my friend put drums into his car after the show. And this guy came up to me and he said, hi, my name is Josh Safran. I am the showrunner of season 2 of Smash. We're going to start shooting soon. And I was here with some people from NBC. I'm a big fan of your work and I want to talk to you about writing songs for the show. I had no idea. He was just someone who literally like...
I mean, that feels huge. It was crazy. That feels like a story from Smash. You know what I mean? Like that sounds like fake.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. And I had no idea. And this guy was just like coming to my stuff and had seen my concert and had seen Krysta sing Broadway Here I Come on YouTube. Wow. And that sort of like gave him the inspiration to write his you know, spec episode of Smash, which is what got him hired, right? That first episode of season 2 of Smash. And so it was, so Broadway Here I Come was already in that script before I ever met that guy. And so I met him, and then initially I was going to be like the writer of the songs for season 2, and then they decided they wanted to do something where it was like multiple writers. And
yeah, they had you and Pascal Paul and a bunch of other people.
Yeah. And so I that it was like a crazy thing because then they said that the network thought that Broadway Here I Come was too sad to be to be like, or too like slow or something, or like draggy to be the like centerpiece song of this episode. And so then they said, could you write a song that's like kind of like that but kind of like more up tempo? And so I wrote this song that I hated so much called Find My Voice. And that was me like writing what I thought people wanted, or me trying to. And I was just, and some people, Molly Hager, who sang Broadway Here I Come, like she sang the demo of it and she stands by that it's a good song. And I'm just like, no, garbage song. But I was
Find My Voice. You mean
Find My Voice. Yeah. But and so then the network didn't like that, and then it was getting close to them shooting, and they ended up using Broadway Here I Come just because they had nothing else. It was like a real miracle that song ended up on that show. Yeah.
I feel so the opposite. Like I feel so much like that song feels like I'm like here, especially when he gets to that end. Here I come. It's like, oh my gosh! It's like you just feel like you're so close. You feel like you're on the precipice of something. You know what I mean? Like there's something about it that feels super hopeful, and also kind of like really New York. I don't know. There's something about it that just feels very.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think so. I think so too, and I think it's a testament to how not everyone who is a very fancy, famous, well-paid person in entertainment knows what the hell they're talking about.
Sure.
You know,
like, for sure.
And I have no idea who it was at NBC, and I'm sure they don't work there anymore.
Probably not.
But whoever it was, they were just like, oh, song is slow, song is boring, song is sad, give me fast song. Like it's not deeper than that, but like because of the way this
also
this works,
strangely, it's strange. It's funny that you said that. I didn't realize that you didn't write it for Smash because that song feels character centric and according to who Jeremy Jordan was.
Yes,
which was so serendipitous.
I know, but also what's so crazy is that Josh Safran wrote that character of Jimmy Collins, like kind of inspired by my other work. You know, like there's this song that I wrote called "Son of a Gun" that's on my album "Things to Ruin" that he like frequently talked about being like a Jimmy Collins like inspiration thing. And sort of like my vibe at the time, it was like I was very like Jimmy Collins coded at the time.
Funny.
And so so it's this weird thing. So it does feel so organic.
Yeah.
But also it's like that guy.
It's edgy. You know?
Yeah. It felt like that. You know, it's like the cartoon version of what I was doing at the time.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I love that song.
Thanks,
and Yeah, I still listen to it. It's great. So was the Goodbye song something that was more integrated into Smash or no? Really?
Yeah.
Removed out of context?
Yeah, Goodbye Song I wrote a standalone many years ago in like 2007, I think.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a song that I usually end my concerts with.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, did before then and continue to do so. And yeah, it's a song that I wrote. Again, it's like there's two things happening in the song. Like one of them is that I had a cousin who had cancer and died, and the song was I was sort of imagining him saying goodbye to his kids, two twins who were quite young at the time, and trying to make it okay for them, so that the memory of their father wasn't something that was wrapped in sadness, but wrapped in joy.
Right.
So it was that, and then that really connected with me to the final scene of E.T., which is a movie that I love very much, where Elliot is saying goodbye to E.T. And so in the song, all the dialogue from the last scene of E.T. is like in the song, like come, stay, ouch, and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, that's the like.
Oh man,
yeah.
I just think that verse is so catchy and so like,
Thanks.
and I thought that the way that they staged it for the record in the show was also really strong
cool,
too. It was
yeah,
really cool,
yeah.
and it just became like this like. The way it was orchestrated was interesting because it becomes this huge up-tempo production number, which is so cool. Yeah. I really dug it. Yeah.
No, me too.
Yeah.
And like the fact that they kept like doing the songs over on the show was the weirdest. It was just so weird. Like it's just like they'd be like they're using it again next week. It was just it's like
funny.
something that I'm so a part of and like was really like removed from. Like I wasn't like there working on it.
And it's funny. I don't think many people realize that you even wrote for Smash. It's like something that I knew because I knew, but even in researching you. Smash was not something that came up as like a part of as part of your like rep, which is funny. Especially because those songs are so unanimous with Smash. Like those songs are big, especially Broadway Here I Come is like a big part of the Smash canon. So it's just like
strange.
Funny. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I want to talk to you a little bit about the Untitled Unauthorized Hunter S. Thompson musical that premiered last year at Signature, which is such a cool place to premiere a show.
Like so cool.
I've never been there, but the space just looks incredible.
I had never been there until like this past year, and it's oh my gosh, it's just the coolest theater.
Yeah,
it's so dreamy.
Yeah, why did you guys pick there for the show? How did that come about?
It was because they wanted us, and so we were like, "Yeah, let's do it there."
Yeah. I just didn't even know that they do much new work.
But honestly though, like we loved the idea of doing the show in Washington D.C.
Yeah,
and so it was really that, and it was Washington D.C. and then Signature is like so brilliant at doing new stuff, and doing a new musical is like its own beast. And the more I've worked in the business, the more I've realized like depending on what you want to do. It's really important to be at a theater that has a level of support, which doesn't mean money necessarily. Although money is great, like a level of support and a level of expertise that align with what your ambition is. You know? And so in Signature, it felt like was a theater that could handle what we were trying to do.
Yeah. And also I just love the fact that it is in the round like that or thrust like that.
Yeah.
It's so cool how it almost feels like a catwalk. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
cool, man. Like, and it's, I love theater that feels immediate. My favorite sort of thing is like, I love when it feels like a show. If it's appropriate for the show, is like slightly too big for the room that it's in, you know? And it's like, and a lot of the stuff I write, I sort of write imagining that it feels like bursting at the seams a little bit. And Signature definitely felt like that, where it's like, and I love a theater where we're all aware that we're all in the same room together, where there's not a lot of boundaries between the people on the stage and the people in the audience. And it's like, because it's like, we need that exchange of energy, and it's like, if the people in the audience aren't there, the show doesn't happen. If if there's no show up on the stage, there's nothing for the audience to see. And it's like, so we need each other. And I love theaters that don't try to hide that or don't try to put a wall there.
Why did you decide to write a musical about Hunter S. Thompson? I mean, like he's such a controversial and also like strange figure, and also someone that, frankly, in the oh my gosh, I was mixing news and media.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I said nudia. But news media landscape, like in terms of the idea of things having to be, pretty cookie cutter and PC, the way that they're fed to us, Hunter S. Thompson is the antithesis of that. So inherently it feels risky.
Yeah, I know. I'm so stupid. I'm such a dummy.
But what interested you about him, and how did you first find out about him?
So I feel like the reason why I've like written the show is like changed over the years, because I started writing it like, I had the idea to write it in 2006. And so it's everything we have talked about over the last couple hours has been happening under the umbrella of me thinking about and writing a musical by Hunter S. Thompson.
Sure.
Like, I do not know a career where I have not been like developing this show.
Oh.
And so what it was Hunter died in 2005. I was aware of him. I saw Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas in high school, and I had this like cursory knowledge of Hunter S. Thompson. I wasn't like obsessed, right? But then when he died, there started being all of these like firsthand accounts from people who knew him, right? And so like in Rolling Stone, they'd be like, "This is Angelica Houston," or John Cusack's take on Hunter S. Thompson. And so I was so struck by all these things people were saying about this guy that I had only sort of known as this like wild man cartoon.
Right.
I only sort of knew Hunter S. Thompson as this like drugged out, like zonked out gonzo lunatic.
Right.
And the stories that people were telling, they painted this picture of this man who was so serious and cared so deeply about art and cared so deeply about America and what was going on in America at the time, and how art had the power to actually change the world in a very real way, and he was a real moralist, which is something I didn't realize, and then other stories people told took this idea of this like cartoon wild man destructive personality and just pushed it farther than you'd ever imagine. So it's like the stuff that he actually did was so much more insane and destructive than the stuff that I'd seen him do in movies, So it was like these two sides of his personality I just found so interesting. And so when I first started, working on it and thought about writing it, I really kind of imagined it would be sort of like a character portrait kind of thing, And then, I love like an anti-hero. Like I love pieces of art that are about characters who are not easily put in a box, about characters who are controversial, who you can't be like, that's a good one or that's a bad one. People who are in the middle and people who feel provocative. And so I just like, this is what this is going to be. And then the more I wrote it, the more America changed, things started to happen. It started then to kind of be like, this show is like a way to talk about politics now through the lens of another time, because it's set predominantly in the late 60s, early 70s, and it felt like I could address things that are going on in the country and in the world at this moment just by looking to the past. And so much of the show actually is about how history repeats itself, and it gets better and worse and better and worse, and how it's all just sort of like it's like waves, as opposed to being a straight line. And then it became about how art has the power to change the world. Wow. Which is what I think the show ultimately is about. Right. But it was like, the show feels like it's like a big, fat, dense, like fire and brimstone behemoth of a show. Right. And I think it feels like a show that I've been thinking about for 20 years. Where my impulse is going different places and sort of settling on this one.
How was it received out there?
It was received pretty well. Yeah. It was received pretty well. Yeah. Yeah. We got a good review in the New York Times, which is the first time that's ever happened to me in my whole career.
Whoa.
And yeah, thank you. And it's like one of those things where I'm like, nobody really cares, but it's like that had been such a thing in my life, and the New York Times wasn't going to come. And then the theater was like, so they're going to come. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's happening again. It's happening again. It's like, I'm working on the show for 20 years and it's going to happen again. And I was traveling on an Amtrak from DC to New York to go to the memorial service of Bill Finn, who was one of my favorite writers and sort of a mentor to me, who died this past year. Right. And I was traveling to his funeral, and I had been just refreshing the New York Times, theater page on my browser every single, 30 seconds for like 5 days. Cause it's like, you don't know when the review's going to come out with like original show, it's not like an opening night thing. So they're sort of like, they came and it can come out literally anytime, whenever. And so I just like refresh. And it popped up as I was on this train, and I like read the whole thing, and I was just like frozen, because I got to the end and I was like, I think that was good. I don't think they said anything bad. And then like I read it again and I was like, they didn't say anything bad.
Wow.
And I just like burst into tears on the train,
Well,
just
it's
from like
special.
relief, you know, like
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
like, oh, thank God this isn't this thing that I have to like fight against, you know?
Right.
So that was really nice.
And I assume means that the show has a future.
I mean, doesn't mean the show has a future, but it's not hurtful.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it did not end the show's future, which
Yes.
is all I care about.
Right.
But the more important thing is that the audience, like actual human people, went crazy for the show, which was so nice and so gratifying, because it is like we're living in crazy times, man. And you know, we're doing this show that is very like guns a-blazing, like it is like political, and it is just like we are, you know, let's like disrupt things and let's
But
act
isn't
up,
that
and we're-
isn't that exciting? Isn't that like what this whole thing is about, right? It's like
I think so.
It really is like, you know, it's funny because I was just watching we were just talking about her podcast, Casey. It's called It's Broadway Bitch, and that you were on in November,
Yeah.
and like I just saw her talk about that idea because I think it's really interesting. Is like, we can try not to appeal. You know what I mean? I haven't seen it, but we've been hearing so much about it. Like this Slant Frank musical that was
Yeah.
off Broadway, like,
Yeah.
and how people are saying that show really shook things up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's exciting. I think that there's something
Yeah.
about that that's like, I
Yeah.
think the earth shattering thing is like the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that's like
yeah.
why people
Right.
feel how they feel
Right,
about
right.
musicals. We're supposed to not all
Yes.
love the same thing and be
Yes,
like, you know.
yes. But even it's like you can. I think that we don't. I always think we don't give the audience enough credit, and then because of that, we're like ruining our audiences. But like, you know, with my show, people were worried about offending the other side. Like that has become
course.
such a thing in
Yeah.
theater, where it's like, you know, like the. Our world, which is so liberal, and it's like I could not be more liberal in every
Sure.
conceivable way. But we're like so obsessed with like not ruffling the feathers of the other side, and we're so obsessed with, you know, like reaching across the aisle and all that, which is like so sweet. But it's like no,
But we're not, the thing about it is that it's like we are from like a marketability standpoint, but in truth,
Yes.
it feels like people don't actually care.
No,
You know what I mean? Because you
people
go
don't
on
care.
social media and like people will say the most vile of things, but
Oh,
from
yeah.
like a marketable standpoint, they're like, this is like a 4-quadrant thing. Like I
Yes.
promise, you know,
Yes, yes, yes,
it's
yes.
like, but
yeah. Well, we performatively care.
Yes,
It's like
right.
you know,
Yeah.
And so it was like about that, and that's why I was like nervous. Where it's like I you know, and like our show again, it's like it is an entertainment, and while we do, you know, say things like you know, we want like, you know, life without war and cops without guns and all this, like we say
Sure.
these things in the show. You know, my hope is that people from every possible background of every political affiliation can come and watch the show. And if there's someone who is, you know, a Republican who's really offended, good, like be offended and storm. How exciting! You get to tell your friends, "Oh, I saw this liberal, you know, piece of crap show, and I'm so sick of these people." It's
I
like,
do
that's
think
fun.
that there's something to the idea of like, listen, there's a room for it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just as much as there's room for the family friendly 4-quadrant thing, there's also room for risky, weird things that won't appeal to anybody, as long as it's inspired and good. Because
Yeah.
the thing about it is,
Right.
there are times where I watch things that I don't like from either side of the spectrum that is super preachy. And the thing that is like trying to like stuff a message down your face and doesn't really inspire itself within its content. And I go like, all right, well, I guess there was only one reason why you made this, and it was to like stuff a message down my throat. And if you're not doing that, no matter how I feel, and if I do disagree, I can get behind this idea because I really feel like you were working on something. You know what I mean? Really pushing towards something.
Yeah,
you know?
for
So-
sure. And I just think, isn't that exciting? And isn't it exciting, like when we can see things and have conversations about what the thing was about and what our
Yeah.
interpretation of the thing was.
Right.
And you know, and I think like so much of writing and like popular art, you know, certainly in film and TV and like absolutely in theater and absolutely in musicals, has become so like literal, and it's so, everything is so spelled out and the messages are so spelled out. And I'm someone who, it's like, I'm a blunt writer. Like
Sure.
I, you know, like I like name things, and I'm very blunt. I am not a writer who is like, you know, super, you know, like super subdued or anything like that. But I see so many shows, like you said, where it just feels like it feels like people are just checking off the boxes of these are the
Right.
things that we're supposed to say. These are
Right.
the things that an audience is going to hoot about. And it's just, and it's like, and your show is never not about what it's about. You know, it's like some shows I see and it's like, you can't have a conversation about this show because it just is what it is. Like, it is so black and white, and it is so like, okay, cool. And I guess people like that, but I just don't think those things have staying power. You know, they might win some Tony Awards and they might do well for a year or two, and then it's like, nobody will think about them ever again.
Right. But it's funny, like, I think about a show like a TV show like Succession. Like, Succession is a show that's bound to offend. There's so many things in Succession that is so like wrong and like weird, but it's so well made that it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? And strangely, you still care about its characters, even though they're like all awful people.
Well, that's the thing too.
You know,
and like with the Hunter show, you know, he's a man who did really awful things, and he has lots of conflicting viewpoints in the show. Like, he was obsessed with guns. He loved guns so much because he loved blowing things up. He just loved it. He also had really liberal ideas about things. You know, it's like he wanted to abolish the police.
And two things can be true.
They can be true. It's like, that is what life is.
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
You know, and it's like, and then it's up to the audience to decide, okay, are the things I don't agree with worth it for the things that I really do agree with? And even if you don't like the actions of a character, you can still like the character. And it's like, I'm just so sick of seeing things where it feels like the main character is just like an angel and has no personality, and it's just so boring.
Banal,
The villain's two-dimensional, and Disney kind of nailed that, where it's like, even when you're a kid, you kind of like, there's something cool about Jafar, Scar. All these
I mean, Scar has a point. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
what I mean.
Yeah.
Kind of like, you know, I was
I killed my brother.
I would do it. Yeah. No, but there's something interesting because when characters do have a perspective, it's like that no matter whether or not you agree with them, you're like, oh well, they have a viewpoint that they're trying to express that is beyond whether or not I agree with it. I just find it interesting. You know?
I also think it's so funny. I mean, just like the main character thing of a character's likability. I just feel like sometimes I'm programmed wrong, where I'll see something and people will be like, I just hated all those characters because they were such awful people. Yeah. And I'll think like, I loved them. I'm glad. I love watching an awful person.
Sure.
And something, you know, it's like, I don't have to, it's like, I'm not watching something to be like, oh, this is the way I want to live my life. You know? I'm not watching like There Will Be Blood and being like, oh, Daniel Plainview. Yeah. He's a great role model. It's like, no, he's a human being. And it's like, that makes me like, that I can relate to people who are flawed, you know, I can relate to people who behave badly.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like a religion. It's like
it's
such a book that we have to follow. We have to be like, well, who's a bad person? So it's like, but even Daniel Day-Lewis, to get there, there's no way he thinks that what he's doing is wrong. He thinks what he's doing is right.
Right. And it's like the Dear Evan Hansen thing, where like everyone, you know, it's like the hot Dear Evan Hansen thing, where it's just like, oh, he's such a monster. Dear Evan Hansen's such a monster. I'm like literally calling him Dear Evan Hansen, but like Evan Hansen is such a monster, and I don't think that's like a flaw. You know, now it's like there's the question of like, does the show think that character should be celebrated? Is the show aware of that character's flaws? That's like a different thing. But it's just like, great. So he's doing bad things. He made a mistake and he's celebrated. Like, cool. That happens in life. You know, it's like, we don't make a mistake and then we're, you know, like actually canceled. Like,
and a lot of the times people get away with things that they shouldn't get away with too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. I want to discuss a little bit about album, which you came out in 2022, which is your album. And it feels almost like this like song cycle because it has all of these like, well, first of all, the people that are attached, just off the top of my head, Krysta Rodriguez, Lin Manuel Miranda, which we discussed earlier, Danny Burstein, Aaron Tveit, like, you know, and it is it just feels like this love letter, you know what I mean? Like to story-oriented, story through song, you know what I mean? And I want to ask you in particular, well, first of all, I should mention that there's a podcast that the Broadway Network produced that, and we're clearly very pro podcast, where you went through and discussed every one of the songs episode by episode, which I think is such a great, innovative, like new idea. I thought that was such a cool thing.
Thanks.
I feel like we would benefit from like composers and lyricists doing that for like new musicals, like all the time. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this is what, you know, the smartphone era song is about, you know, and this is what we were thinking with this. But anyway, I want to ask you particularly about the song 52 because I just adore that song. Like it really stood out to me. I was listening to this album and I hadn't, before doing research on you, I didn't even know you came out with this album, but I like love in particular that song. And it's essentially, for those who haven't listened to it, go listen to it right now. But it's a song about these two theaters that are on 52nd Street that were named the Alvin and Virginia Theater and now have since changed their names. What is the what is the Alvin and Virginia Theater?
The Alvin is the Neil Simon, and the Virginia is the August Wilson.
August Wilson, right?
Yeah.
And you know, Danny Burstein, who's like this perfect narrator for this story. Tell me about why you came up with that song, and yeah.
So I wrote that song for a concert that was put together by my great pal Jennifer Ashley Tepper.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
My mom actually just surprised me with one of her books.
Oh,
she was
cool.
like, "Hey, I think you'd like this," and just gave me one of her Untold Stories books, and I was
They're
like,
the best books.
Yeah, because we were talking about them with AJ Shively,
Yeah.
who also mentioned you, and
Yeah.
funny enough, and yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
just funny.
I know I listened to the whole AJ episode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I actually want to speak to Jennifer. I want to have her on the show.
You got to.
Yeah.
She's the greatest.
Yeah.
But the concert was about, I forget actually what the literal prompt was, but it was songs about the theater in some way. And so I wrote this song, and I wrote it. I was doing a concert at Barrington Stage Company in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I was staying at the house of this amazing woman, Reba Evanchek, who actually just died a couple weeks ago. And I was really busy. I had a lot going on, and I waited to the last minute to write the song, and Tepper was so pissed at me because I hadn't sent her, a copy of the song, but I wrote it on Reba's piano at Barrington. And I just, I am someone who is obsessed with the idea of legacy in theater and history in theater, and I love the actual buildings that theater happens in. And anytime I'm in a theater, I think about the other shows that have been there, and I love the fact that these walls have taken in the energy of all of these artists at the time. And I think you can feel it. I think it's this magic thing,
it is.
And being a part of that all is just so I think it's important, and I'm very, very proud that I get to be in this business, and I get to sometimes dabble in these rooms that these amazing artists have dabbled in.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to write a song about that. And I really love writing songs about animals or inanimate objects and giving them human characteristics. So it felt like a good way to do it. And it's even though the theater remains, the idea that the names change, it just feels like it just speaks to New York City, where it's it's always changing, and these places that we love, they become a little bit different, or they get torn down, or they're not torn down, but they change hands. And it's just this ever evolving thing that is sometimes sad, and it's sometimes good. And it's just, I wanted to capture that in a song. So
yeah, and I think you did really successfully, and I think that the people that you involved in it were pretty top notch. So
they're pretty good in
terms of selling those stories, including yourself. And I
Thanks.
I really appreciated that album. I think that's great.
Thanks.
And
Danny Burstein is so awesome. He's someone
so
who I want to work with so bad. I've been such a fan of his for so long.
He's the best.
So that's the first time we ever technically worked together.
Oh.
And I'm not someone who gets starstruck by famous people. I get starstruck by talent.
Yeah.
And so I was so starstruck.
Yeah.
When I went to rehearse that song in his apartment, and I truly was just I can't believe I'm in this man's apartment.
He's incredible.
I was a blubbering mess. When we recorded the song, I'm normally pretty easy to talk to, and I feel very comfortable. But I just was I was like a frightened little girl with him. And he's the nicest man who ever lived. I just think he's the coolest.
He's very
most
soft spoken
talented.
and just very warm.
Yeah.
I met him once, and he's just the greatest. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I just want to cast him as my dad and something.
Yeah, it's true.
Have him
it's
read
true.
to me.
It's true.
So
it's
creepy,
true. It's 100% true.
I just want to curl up in a blanket on Danny Burstein's lap.
We'll tag him in that.
Yeah, it's creepy.
And then I want to ask you. I want to ask you. We do this fun little thing we did with AJ actually. Your Mount Rushmore musicals.
Yeah.
Give me your Mount Rushmore's 4, but let's do 5.
Let's do 5.
Your top musicals, your personal faves.
Okay. This is very hard because I have very passionate feelings about music. We haven't actually talked about any of my musicals that I love so much. But I'll do Cabaret. That's my number one all-time favorite musical.
I love that show.
If I have to choose a version of Cabaret, I would choose the '98 revival version. I think that's the best version I've been.
Oh yeah.
So let's say Cabaret.
It's funny how that works. How that became the version.
Yeah. But that production too is just like I saw that production over 30 times because I was in college.
No way.
Yeah. And so I would like volunteer usher all the time.
Wow.
Which I don't know if you can still do that around about, but
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But oh man,
That's Michelle. That's our dearest Michelle Pox production.
yeah,
She's,
no, of course.
Yeah. Gosh.
The best. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best cost ever. Okay, so cabaret. I'll do one Sondheim, so I'll say Follies.
Nice.
It's my favorite Sondheim if I have to choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say Little Shop of Horrors. Let's say, oh
You're going strong. These three are great.
Yeah.
oh no, I'm running out. Okay, I'm just gonna say that the first things that popped to mind, Rent, and okay, I'm gonna go old. Carousel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, solid list. That's a solid lineup. I love it.
I'm sorry to falsettos and Hedwig.
Yeah,
Those were like-
yeah.
And How to Succeed. Those
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
Klein there.
Oh
yeah.
God, I love that. And then we do we have a tradition on this podcast where we manifest a dream guest. It could be anyone you'd like, whoever we've gotten the likes of Carol Burnett to like Groff to Debbie Allen to
Dream guest. Who do I want to? Okay, so I'm not gonna say someone who I know and have heard speak a lot.
Sure.
I want Richard O'Brien, who wrote the Rocky Horror Show.
Oh yeah. Oh cool. Yeah. And
I
that's
want
going
an
back to spring.
in-depth interview
Yeah.
with Richard O'Brien,
Okay,
where
sweet.
he's asked questions that I write because I want to know stuff. I want to know about shock treatment. I want to know about the original Belasco run.
Yeah.
I want to know like everything that he never gets asked about in relation to Rocky. Horror.
I love it. I
Richard
love it.
O'Brien,
I'll take it.
baby.
I'll take
Yeah.
it. And then I want to ask you, this is like this question gets asked a lot, but what's next for you? And first of all, you have a concert coming up in a week or so.
Yeah.
And and I'm sure you're doing many of those this year, right?
I'm actually not. I'm not a lot in the books.
No?
No, I don't know. I'm in this weird place where I'm like, maybe I gotta give it a rest a little bit with the concerts.
Sure.
I love doing them, but I'm trying to take a slight break.
Okay.
Slight.
Yeah.
Slight. I'm trying to get to a place where I'm working on some new material.
Nice.
It's been a really long time since I started something brand new.
Yeah.
And so I have a couple projects that I'm like just about to start. It feels very overwhelming to me right now. Just because like every show I've ever worked on has taken like years and years and years and years to get to a stage. So now I'm just kind of like, oh man, is this going to be another thing that I'm spending 20 years on?
Yeah,
it just feels like it's like
right.
daunting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But also exciting.
it's yeah. So like just about to start some new stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, I don't want to talk about any of it just because then it will give me like the satisfaction of like putting it out in the world. And I want to reward myself for actually writing. And then I'll be able to talk about it. But like, So yeah, I'm like just about to start some new stuff, and And
I hope that we get to see Hunter S. Thompson come back in some type of form or fashion.
I'm trying,
soon.
man.
Yeah.
It's like it's a wild time for new musicals, but I just so passionately believe in this art form, and I so believe that like that people want good, original, weirdo, heartfelt, uncynical musicals. And it's just like history has proven time and time again that we're in really rough spots on Broadway and in New York theater, and then something magical happens. Something breaks through that no one expects. And
100%.
And I hope that thing is my thing, but if it's not, it'll be something. And I'm
exciting
so
to be
excited.
a part of nonetheless.
It is exciting to be a part of,
And lastly, we started the podcast by asking you who your I Want to Be Like You as a kid was, and we want to end the podcast by asking you who is your I Want to Be Like You now. And it could be anyone, it could be someone in your life, it doesn't have to be a celebrity, it could be whoever you'd like.
I want to be like
It's a tougher question than it lets on.
I know, and I knew you were gonna ask it. I knew you were gonna ask it.
People ask me. People sometimes will come up on the street and ask me, and I'll be like,
It's just so I feel so loaded. Can the person be dead or no?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah, whoever you like.
Shit. Okay. Oh, okay. Then my grandpa.
Oh, nice. Why your
Grandpa
grandpa?
Joe.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when so my grandpa died when I was 17, and um he was he was a really charismatic, huge personality man. He had like a million jobs. He was like a cab driver, and he was a private investigator, and he owned a restaurant, and like he just did a million things, and I just as a model for like what a man is. I looked up to him so much as a kid, and I feel like a lot of the way I am now, I'm sort of like maybe subconsciously trying to be like my grandpa. Like I remember my grandpa, and he, when he died, I was really, really different. So he never sort of like got to see me as I am, and so I feel like I'm always trying to to reach for him anyway.
Yeah.
So I want to be like, feels like that's who I'm.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
always
special.
trying to go for.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much for doing this. This
Thank
is
you,
such a
man. Thanks
treat.
for having
And
me.
yeah, we really appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it. We're big fans and consumers of your art. So I'm excited for what's, what we have next to hear and see and all the things.
Thanks,
Yeah.
brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Joe Iconis. I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Christian Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, Kirsten Blue Kaiser, and of course, Joe Iconis.